School Figure TV. Revolutionary salute. Revolutionary salute. Like, share, subscribe. Welcome to the House of Revolution. You know I'm your humble host, the Yao Ming Revolution, and one man's terrorist is another man's freedom fighter. Before we get into that, be sure to wipe your feet. That means hit the like button. Like, share, subscribe, support the platform, y'all. Humiliation in abundance for the NATO, the US, and Israel today.
Kibbutz Be'eri on the Indeed, and a lot of people here in Hostage Square are holding up signs of these three men. All of them have relatives who have been very prominent at the weekly rallies that have taken place over the past 16 months to keep the hostages in the forefront of everybody's minds. There were claps and cheers as the first of the hostages became visible, Ohad Ben Ami, who was kidnapped from Kibbutz Be'eri on the 7th of October. His wife had been kidnapped along with him, but was released in that first ceasefire deal, hostage for prisoner exchange back in November 2023. And she has been a very present campaigner. People expressing shock at the physical appearance of these three men, saying that they appear very thin. You have also Eli who's 52, who's also kidnapped from Kibbutz Be'eri. People have been saying about him that they're very worried because they believe that he may not know that indeed his wife and his two children were killed on the 7th of October in the safe room of the family's house. He may not know that his brother, who was kidnapped to Gaza along with him, has been killed. The Israeli military saying that was most likely an Israeli airstrike on a building close to where he was being held quite early on in the war. And then you also have Or Levy, who's 34, kidnapped from the Nova Music Festival. His wife there was killed, and his family have been really holding out hope that he can be returned to be reunited with his little son, who's little more than a toddler, and hasn't seen his father, of course, for 16 months. His mother has been killed. So people here know the stories of these three men very well. They've been handed over to the Red Cross, playing such a key role in these exchanges that are taking place, hostages being freed. And then once these men get to the sort of edge of Gaza, they will be handed over to Israeli military forces. They'll be taken to an army base near Kibbutz Re'im, not very far from where Or Levy was snatched on the 7th of October. There they'll be reunited with some members of their family. They'll have an initial medical assessment. And then, as we've seen with other hostages, they will be taken off for more thorough medical tests and to catch up with more of their loved ones at different hospitals in Israel. And at the same time, we are expecting this Palestinian prisoner release to take place in the coming hours. Already, Israeli military vehicles have been seen moving into the Offa military prison in the occupied West Bank ahead of this expected handover of something like 183 Palestinian prisoners to the Red Cross. About 70 of them said to be serving life sentences and long sentences, people seen by Israel as having blood on their hands in many cases. And then you also have more than 100 Gazans who have been detained by Israel during the war and mostly held without trial and without charge. This is all part of the process that we're expecting to see during the course of the coming hours.
Yolande, this is the fifth hostage swap for prisoners since the ceasefire began on January the 19th. Just describe what the atmosphere has been like over the past few weeks when these releases happen, and what the mood is there in the country, because this is giving a huge lift to these people in Israel who've gone through so much trauma. But what is the thinking now, the hopes about what will happen next?
Well, you heard behind me maybe a short time ago, there was a cheer that went up from Hostage Square as these little strands of good news come through and people are watching a big screen here, watching a live news feed of everything that is happening. People really do take hope from the fact that after 16 difficult months, this long campaigning, they are still seeing hostages coming back alive from Gaza. But at the moment, we're also at a very critical stage, as people here are keen to point out to you. This is the point where we're supposed to now see in earnest talks taking place on the second, more sensitive stage of the ceasefire deal. These talks supposed to begin in the coming days, with an Israeli negotiating team flying off to Doha, with Qatar serving as a regional mediator. This stage of the deal is supposed to see a more permanent end to the fighting in Gaza, and in exchange, another 60, the remaining Israeli hostages coming back from Gaza. More than half of those currently said to be alive. They're male hostages, a lot of them Israeli soldiers. And people here know that this is a critical point. They're very worried that because of the state of his coalition government, that the Israeli Prime Minister Benjamin Netanyahu may not push in their minds enough for this stage of the ceasefire to bring home the rest of the hostages, their loved ones. And of course, Palestinians also extremely worried about this moment. And what has added to all the concerns in the past week are those extremely controversial comments by President Trump, which he has been sticking to, where he's talked about turning Gaza into a sort of international travel destination in the future, a US takeover, and moving away the some 2 million Palestinians who live there. That's something that Palestinians have totally rejected, that Arab countries have totally rejected as well. Many international powers also saying this is just not an acceptable idea. But it has really sort of on the far right in Israel in particular been something that has proven very attractive as an idea already before this was suggested by Mr. Trump. And, you know, people now feel that with that in the background, that could really make these second stage ceasefire talks even more difficult.
Let's consult with Chalar Hocha to get insight. Because when I reflect on all of this, as I was observing it yesterday morning, I thought to myself, this is not ordinary. Consequently, these circumstances have their origin in a fire.
Look at the way they hold their weapons. Look at their cards, their ID cards, their badges, their ranks, their name tags, their clothes, their glasses so their eyes don't show.
Mars ain't scared of these people, man.
Dress, warrior dress.
These are real regular army.
Before that, the ranks eluded me. But what I observed is that their actions do not resemble those of a spontaneous civilian militia that united and fought in the Battle of Mescom district. Instead, they demonstrate a remarkably high level of organization.
And what you call the elite brigade, O Netanyahu,
look here,
take it.
Really low. Look, think about
Put
that
it under
flag.
my feet.
Look where they found it, where they hung it. Look even at those ruined buildings. Look at the flags and other flags. As my professor said, they have established strategic communication very well with the whole world public opinion.
Come on, man. Humiliation.
Now, of course, I don't want to take time.
They ready for war. They not going nowhere.
You know, it was never talked about in this way. I asked because it stuck in my mind. I mean, it's like these men, this outrageousness. It's like being caught in a fire.
Let's stand over there.
Look what?
Look at these posters. All of them are, of course, fighters of this and even higher segment. I mean, it's not the traditional hunter's grip, but it comes close.
They are elite troops. You say they are elite.
They have an upright stance, not like this. Look around. These guys were bombed for 15 months. I'm counting. They were bombed from land, air, sea for 15 months. They were bombed from land, air, sea, a tiny area. We even compared it to Kadikoy. We said it was the size of Kadikoy or something like that. It should be something like that.
365 square kilometers.
365 square kilometers. So this area was bombed. And do you know how this bombing happened?
Man, some of the best fighters in the world.
It should collapse you psychologically, mentally to get out of here. But here is the image. These are the manifestations of the spirit of resistance of these fighters, the desire to continue the war, the desire to protect their homeland. These are not the kind of images that you get from evening to morning. Let's really go a little further in this sense, please.
Let's go on a bit more.
And then there's this.
Salar Hojam, I will ask one more thing. Let's keep this in mind. Please stop it whenever you want. What gift does Netanyahu take with him when he leaves?
Look, I'm very sorry. Can we stop here? Look at this. Look at the rank of the leader on their heads. Here they stood in such an orderly manner. If we move a little, it will be seen anyway.
Let's pack it.
Look here, there is a name badge, identification card, rank, epaulette, everything. A certain uniform structure has been adopted. So, as you say, we disgrace those 4 brigades of yours. We are mocking you like this.
It doesn't happen like that.
That's not how it works. Look at the way they are dressed, the way they hold their weapons, the way they walk. They are all trained, or would this one roll away? These are not things you can pick up overnight. These are really very disciplined people. They know very well how to protect themselves. Look, even the elements of the camera, even the elements of the cameraman in military terms, they know very well where to stand and what to shoot.
Oh, them too.
Of course, they are also a thing, not from the sidelines. Where will they take pictures? How will they take pictures? Look, all of these are not like that in the military sense. They are not civilian photographers or anything like that. They are really
and they look
disciplined.
like they've been chosen for their height.
Who have been there?
I think you've chosen them specially. No, I mean specially chosen.
This is what we call the spirit of resistance. So it is not an easy thing to show this resilience despite all this. That's why he says that if not your 4 brigades, but 24 brigades came, he put them all in caricature, and Israel is going crazy. It freaks out on the net, Yahoo, there it is, there it is.
At that time, Kansan also threw one at Trump. Here, let me do something for you.
Revolutionary salute, fam.
Well, could it be like this, Chala Hodja? Let me add what Ali Hodja said. So yes, people here will really want to feed their children. They will want to keep a subject somewhere. Well, let's say the civilian population comes out of there. But will these people come out? No. If they don't get out, can they achieve anything here in Gaza, sir? No American army will enter, no elite unit.
Those places were bombed, hospitals were bombed.
They cannot resist. May God help him.
Those babies died of starvation, God forbid.
The healing hospital, shamelessly hoisting a flag on top of it.
The young population living here, the young people, these things, the mood of the fighters is very different right now. I evaluated that they are not the kind of people who would say, come on, we'll tell you to leave, but okay, we'll leave if you order us to.
It's okay. Let me also ask you this.
They ain't going nowhere.
That's the gift he'll take with him. The gift he takes.
A golden pager.
He took it. Netanyahu gives it to Trump. And that's the one that Hezbollah was hit with a pager attack that wounded about 400 people. And that's, sir.
Yes, the children's eyes were small.
Now he did something like this. He's giving a golden pager to symbolize this. He also gives a real pager. In return, Trump gives Netanyahu a photo of the two of them together, side by side, hand in hand. And there he says, "You are a great leader, Bibi."
And so on. They fit into this framework, don't they? The pager, it was a great operation. It was a historic operation. History.
The fifth knock of the prisoner exchange between the Palestinian side and the Israeli side took place today, and Hamas and the Palestinian resistance decided to label it, "We are the flood, we are the day after, meaning that they are the day after the war. There's been a lot of talk about who's going to be controlling Gaza after the war, with Israel and its allies primarily led by the United States, saying that Hamas shouldn't be there the day after and there should be no threat to Israel. These people should be disarmed there. All of the talk is against the side that is oppressed, the side that is occupied, the side that's been ethnically cleansed. No talk about the day after Israel, the day after the war criminals, the day after the genocide, the day after the occupational entity that commits all of these crimes. However, Hamas did have an answer also to the day after based on certain statements coming from one of their political figures that I will be getting to shortly after in this video. But the title, when it comes to the release from Al-Qassam Brigade, said, "We are the flood and we are the day after." Again, messages in every nook of prisoner exchange from Hamas and the Palestinian resistance. They'll use weapons, they'll use locations, and this time they're telling them we are the day after, and Benjamin Netanyahu is going to go away. The numbers of Palestinians who were released in exchange for the 3 Israeli prisoners was 183. And these Palestinian prisoners who are now freed have described abuses and tortures that are unimaginable. One of them said that since the 7th of October 2023, Israel had this all-out punishment against all of the prisoners as if they were the ones who conducted the 7th of October attacks, although this was something that was ordered by the then Minister of Interior Security and National Security, Itamar Ben-Gvir, to make things harder on the Palestinian prisoners. And many of them were maimed, many of them were martyred. One of them said that they were torturing them up until the moment that they released them. And upon their release, they forced them to read out a biblical verse saying that we are the eternal people, as in Israel. We're the eternal people. We chase our enemies and we get them. And they also attacked some of the families of those prisoners who were released so that they don't celebrate, because it's forbidden to celebrate as well. They want to have controls over over people's feelings, not just their movement and lives, and how you feel. You know, you shouldn't feel happiness or anything positive. But they described very traumatic things in the prisons, and over 100 of the prisoners went to Gaza today. Many of them were imprisoned after the 7th of October. The most interesting thing that's going to be happening, according to Israeli reports, from tomorrow morning is the fact that Israel will be withdrawing from the remaining part of the Netzarim corridor. Israel tried to have multiple delays when it comes to this withdrawal, saying that no, Hamas needs to adhere to the actual agreement before we withdraw, but now they're actually withdrawing. This withdrawal is one of the biggest accomplishments of the Palestinian resistance during these negotiations. This now means that Israel will withdraw further away from Salah ad-Din Road, the area that the Palestinians use vehicles to go back to the north on. And now the movement between the north and the south is going to be even freer. So people from the north can go down south with vehicles, and there's going to be lots of numbers of people going in, and also more aid in all parts of Gaza. Another withdrawal that's due to take place during the initial phase is a complete withdrawal from the Philadelphia corridor. And there are some expectations that this might happen in the next few days. However, these withdrawals from Israel, they are very censored. You usually start knowing about them as and when they happen. As a matter of fact, Israel has countermeasures to show as if, no, we're actually deploying to cover up the fact that they're withdrawing from these areas. And they go to such far extents, they do these such far-fetched things to cover up all of that. What did they do? They actually redeployed 3 divisions in the buffer zone inside of Gaza. Now, many people, the first thing that they would say, this might indicate that Israel is going in to a war again. They're going to finish phase 1 and then they're going to go to an all-out war with Gaza, which is absolutely a possibility. However, on the ground, they are still implementing the things that they agreed upon in the ceasefire agreement. So now they deployed divisions 99, 143, and 162 in the buffer zone areas that stretch about 700 meters on average. And according to them, this was in line with the ceasefire agreement. How, why? Not sure of that. But again, this is not something inside of populated areas. All of the populated areas are now empty of any IDF terrorists. All of the terrorist forces inside populated areas have withdrawn, and tomorrow they're going to even complete it further with the withdrawal from the Netzarim. However, this move is mostly suspected to be a move to cover up this humiliation. And the people are trying to avoid the talk about this withdrawal, only shy flash, news here and there that they're going to withdraw from the remaining part of the Netzarim corridor. Why is this something significant? This is significant because Israel intended for the Netzarim corridor to be the area that splits Gaza in half when they completely get rid of all of the population in North Gaza as an initial step to later ethnically cleanse the south as well. Because it was too difficult to ethnically cleanse everyone from the beginning, they thought, okay, let's have this general's plan, we'll expand the Netzarim corridor. They've had approximately 6 bases altogether in the Netzarim corridor, and they had this general's plan in the north for approximately 3 months to try and force everyone out, so that the north can remain empty. However, the people, Israel started with the most northern parts like Beit Hanun, Beit Lahiya, and Jabalia, trying to force people down to Gaza and then follow them to the Gaza Valley to expel them down south to the Netzarim corridor. People still remained there, and they even remained in the areas that were mostly hit during this what they call the general's plan, the genocidal general's plan, and remained in the north. Now that they're withdrawing and allowed all of this influx of people, over 500,000, back to the north, they've put all of their military genocidal operation in the bin. They've put the soldiers' trust at a historical low when it comes to the faith in the Israeli army and the campaigns that they're conducting, because a place like Jabalia, where the Israeli army was deployed so many times, only to withdraw later on and to allow Hamas back, Hamas re-emerging from everywhere, and the people going back. The soldiers will tell you, well, what did I go and die for? What did I go through this whole operation? Why did you send me there when you could have had all of this deal before? So a lot of the moves that Israel is conducting today is only to cover up the grave failure. And the fact that Benjamin Netanyahu decided to split this ceasefire agreement to 3 phases is going back at him like a boomerang and hitting him in his face with the scenes that are coming from Gaza. Instead of having all of a sudden an agreement with Gaza that includes everything, an all-out full agreement where they exchange everyone, get everything that they want, and the Palestinians likewise, they decide to split it so that they can have damage controlled when it comes to the image and the levels of losses and concessions they give to the Palestinian side. Image, an image of victory. However, instead now we have scenes from Gaza, these power scenes from the Palestinian resistance, military marches, thousands of armed members of the Palestinian resistance, full control and challenging Israel, and we're the day after, and we're the flood, and the people are going back. And in Netanyahu, that's the worst thing that can happen to him. And these things are happening every single week, instead of him just having a one-off agreement and getting everything all over and done with. However, the people in Israel are not happy, especially those who still have prisoners inside of Gaza. They're saying that we think that Netanyahu actually wants to end this ceasefire now and go back to Gaza. He already killed so many people. He is already in charge of the 7th of October massacre, and now he wants to drag us again to another round of war. They're not trusting him whatsoever, despite all of the actions on the ground. Which leads me to the political situation when it comes to Hamas. Today, there was an interview with Bassem Naim, a senior member of Hamas, who said that Israel has no say in what happens in Gaza. And the agreement states that Israel has no say, didn't discuss the day after. However, this is confirming that Israel is babbling, by the way, all of talk of the day after. But he said, however, we would happily hand over the management of Gaza to any national Palestinian side that all political parties agree upon and has the Palestinian interests at their heart, the best of the Palestinian interests. And we offered that in 2014, we offered that in 2021. However, there was a rejection, of course, from the Palestinian Authority. The Palestinian President Mahmoud Abbas, he had rejections because he wanted to control Gaza directly without any other independent movements working for the interests of the Palestinian people. So Bassem Naim is saying we actually have no interest in running everything when it comes to Gaza. If we can have a technocratic government or people, individuals who the political parties, there's a consensus upon them, then fine. However, that's not happening. And sure as hell, we're not going to give our enemies any say when it comes to the day after Gaza. And the fact that Al-Qassam brigades, with the handing of the prisoners of war today in Gaza, said we're the day after, they're clearly sending a message that it doesn't matter what kind of political party come. At the end of the day, it's the resistance there, so long as there is an occupation, fighting this occupation, fighting this genocidal entity, up until the liberation and the justice for the Palestinian people. Then a Hamas delegation went to Iran to meet with the supreme leader, Ali Khamenei, who said that you have defeated Israel and the United States. He told the Hamas members, you defeated Israel and the US. Why did you defeat Israel and the US? Because it's the US behind these people. The fact that Gaza survived and made Israel fail in achieving any of their objectives in Gaza is a massive blow to Israel and is a massive victory to the Palestinian people. He said the people of Gaza have become a role model for all those whose hearts are attached to the resistance. And the issue of defending Palestine and supporting the Palestinian people is beyond doubt in the minds of the Iranian people. And the fact that the Palestinian people stood against the Zionist entity with strength and dignity and achieved great accomplishments. And the Palestinian side as well, they spoke to him as it's a joint victory. It's a victory for us, and it's also a victory for Iran, showing appreciation for Iran for its position in supporting the Palestinian resistance. This is a show of maturity, both from Hamas and from Iran. A country and a movement that had their disagreements. For example, when it comes to Syria, there were even cases of certain Hamas members fighting on the opposing side of Iran in Syria to a level where Iran said it's like we're fighting ourselves side of Syria. And despite that, they are united in their resistance, and they view everything from a strategic perspective against the genocidal entity. And the fact that the Hamas delegation are saying that this is a victory for us and we're celebrating it together shows how much of a role Iran played when it comes to this victory in Gaza. Of course, it's the Palestinian people primarily and the Palestinian resistance. However, as a country, Iran has been supporting the Palestinian resistance, the Palestinian cause, before Hamas even existed. So to them, it's a case of ideology, it's a case of a belief, and that's clearly visible. Iran has done more to the Palestinian people and the Palestinian cause than any other Arab country that's next to Palestine. It's an important message. It's an important message of unity, and it's also a very strong position of a united resistance front against Israel, showing that Iran is still supporting the Palestinian resistance and supporting Hamas as well when it comes to fighting Israel. Moving on to Jordan, lots of tensions between the
Okay, well, Trump has said that America is going to take over the Gaza Strip and expel all the Palestinians. So I guess that's that, right? America is going to own Gaza, and everyone's having a panic attack. And I'm asking, why do you think that you still live in a world where America can unilaterally decide what happens in the world? Because this is essentially what your problem is. Never mind whether Trump is serious or not about what he's saying. Never mind about that. I'll talk about that in a minute. But why would anyone in 2025 think that it matters even slightly whether he is serious or not? The world is not America-centric anymore. I mean, truth be told, Trump himself is not America-centric. I mean, think about it. America occupied Afghanistan for 20 years to destroy the Taliban. Taliban is the government right now, and America left. America said that they wanted to topple Bashar al-Assad all the way back in 2011, and it didn't happen until just a couple of months ago. And it was accomplished by Turkey, by Iran, and by Russia. And in fact, the government that they have today in Syria is from a group of people whom the Americans designated as terrorists. And then they had to rescind that. You know, America can't even get Russia out of the Ukraine. They tried to get Maduro out of Venezuela and they failed. Now they're doing deals with him. They failed in Bolivia. They failed in Georgia. They failed in Kazakhstan. They failed in Hungary, barely holding on in Moldova. They failed in Niger. They failed in Burkina Faso. They failed in Mali. They failed in Ethiopia. They failed in Guinea. Do you understand what I'm saying? It's been a very long time since America could just say to anyone, this is how things are going to be. So I don't know why anyone acts like America is the CEO of planet Earth. I mean, the truth of the matter is that the illusion of American supremacy has always been a function of relative power, not absolute power. The US was never invincible. It was just unchallenged after the Cold War. The Soviet Union was America's only real global competitor at that time. But even then, they weren't equal, really, in terms of economic output, technological innovation, global reach, and so on. But yet they were still enough to keep America from being globally supreme. I mean, the USSR was militarily formidable, but it was an economic and administrative disaster. Their collapse was self-inflicted. It wasn't the consequence of American power. The Soviet collapse was caused by inefficient central planning. It was caused by bad policy, overextension of military spending to try to keep up with the US and their military spending, internal corruption, stagnation, failed economic reforms like perestroika. That system died. It wasn't killed. The US didn't defeat the Soviet Union. They just outlived it. That's not the same thing. The collapse of the USSR left the United States as the default superpower. It was the default superpower, not because America was all powerful, but because nobody else was left. And now that era is over. Even the new US Secretary of State, Rubio, himself has acknowledged that America being the unipolar global superpower was an anomaly of history. And that moment has now passed into history. The US only appeared unstoppable because no competitor existed until now. But now today, America has multiple competitors. China in terms of technology and economy and so on, Russia in terms of military, geopolitics and so forth, and then of course the global south, the entirety of the global south, BRICS, alliances against US hegemony. All of this are competitors that America can't cope with. I mean, just look at Russia. In some ways, Russia today has even more influence than they had when they were part of the Soviet Union, when they ran the Soviet Union. I mean, it's a significantly smaller economy than the United States, but the strategic importance of that economy and the strategic importance of their economic relationships is still enough to frustrate America's dominance. So you see what I'm saying? I mean, when you really look at it objectively, America's narrative about themselves does not hold up to scrutiny. I mean, even if you look at objectively, World War II that they always brag about, it was the Soviets who ultimately defeated the Nazis, not America. 80% of Nazi casualties were inflicted by the Soviet Union, by Soviet troops. John Wayne didn't defeat Hitler. That's all Hollywood propaganda. The truth is that a great deal of the strength and a great deal of the power that everyone thinks that America has, it never really did have. That's a fact. And now that relative power, that relative strength is diminishing because it always relied on the absence of any other power existing. Well, now other powers exist. So you have to understand both that, first of all, America never was as powerful as you have been made to believe it was. And secondly, you have to understand that the power that they did have is in steep decline. And it's been shrinking for years now. That's the reality. And as I've talked about, the power structure in America knows this. They're fully aware. That's why we see them withdrawing. That's why they're self-isolating. It's not by choice, it's by necessity. They have to, because not only does America not enjoy global supremacy, they're not even competitive anymore. They don't have the coercive power that they had when there was no one else on the block. Really, there are only two main reasons why we ever thought that America was so powerful. First, like I said, is because after the collapse of the Soviet Union, there simply wasn't anyone else. So in the absence of another power, they looked very powerful. And the second reason is because their use of their power was always so malicious and so brutal. So their viciousness amplified their power in our minds. But there's a difference between being powerful and being dangerous. America was just dangerous, but they weren't that powerful. America was always bloody, but they were never brave. And so now with the rise of China, with the rise of BRICS and so on, with the rise of increasing regional autonomy, say, America is retreating because it has to. I mean, you should really stop. America should stop posturing about China. It's ridiculous about rivalry and conflict with China or what have you, what you will or what you won't do about Taiwan. It's just absurd. You're not going to get into an armed conflict with China, and everyone knows it. You won't even fight Russia yourselves. You'll just let the entirety of Ukraine commit national suicide on your behalf. I mean, China wouldn't even have to fight your military. They could just decide one day that you don't get access to their rare earths anymore, and they'll neutralize you overnight. Let's be serious. Even your uniforms, your military uniforms are made in China. So the point is, America isn't what it used to be, and even what it used to be wasn't what you thought it was. So when Trump says this or Trump says that, or if it was Biden and he said this or that or the other, whoever else, it doesn't matter. When they talk about what they want to happen in the world, it's not divine decree to which all the nations of the world must capitulate. Those days are over. Because look, Trump didn't say anything, actually. He didn't say anything different than what Biden said. Biden also said that he wanted Egypt and Jordan to take the Palestinians, and he was told no, just like Trump has been told no. Trump doesn't have any more power than Biden had. It's the same office. I mean, Trump can put, expel the Palestinians on his vision board and meditate about trying to manifest it, see if the universe wants to give it to him, but that's about it. This is not a realistic suggestion in any way whatsoever. And in my opinion, Trump knows that. The Palestinians aren't going anywhere. Now, I should say, obviously, what he is suggesting, just the fact that he's suggesting it, whether he's serious or not, what he is suggesting is genocide. He's suggesting ethnic cleansing. He's suggesting a crime against humanity. And frankly, again, regardless of whether he's serious or not, just for saying it, and of course, any single step that he might take in trying to get support for that suggestion, well, he should be tried at the ICJ. But that's not saying something special. There hasn't been an American president in my whole lifetime who shouldn't have been charged and tried for war crimes. And inshallah, bi'idhnillah, we'll see a day like that. We'll see a day when that happens. That day will come, inshallah. I mean, Trump is too old to worry about that. But there are people in his administration who could potentially live long enough to live in a world where American officials are finally held accountable for their crimes. I don't know how old Anthony Blinken is, but he should definitely be in the dock, along with Obama, along with Hillary, Bush, Cheney, all the lot of them. You know, Marco Rubio, that Secretary of State, he's not that old. He might just live long enough to see his day in court. But look, the reality is there's no plan here. Any Zionists who are getting excited about it are basically the same as people who buy a meme coin or an NFT. You're being had. You know, Trump is cutting all foreign spending, U.S. aid, freezing all foreign assistance. Even the CIA is on the chopping block. He's going to pull American troops out of Syria. He's even talking about reducing or even potentially withdrawing American troops, ground troops out of Europe. He's not about to undertake a military occupation of Gaza by the United States. You must be joking. I mean, this is so obvious that it shouldn't even need to be said. And as for the expulsion of the Palestinians into some sort of settlements somewhere, Egypt, Jordan, or somewhere else, well, his plan is for the Arab states to pay for it. Okay, this is according to the prevailing interpretation of his words. I'll talk about that also in a minute. But according to the interpretation that everyone is going with, Trump wants to expel the Palestinians, if not to Egypt, and if not to Jordan, then to any number of other countries unnamed. And then he wants to have the rich Arab states, the Gulf states, and so on, pay for building settlements for them. Well, again, obviously that's not going to happen. That's not going anywhere. The entire Arab League has rejected that suggestion. The GCC has rejected that suggestion. This suggestion that they should finance America's ethnic cleansing of the Palestinians. No, that's not going anywhere. I mean, here's the suggestion. In summary, he's saying, you Arab states, you finance the genocide for us, and in return, we'll grab all the land in Gaza, we'll build it up, we'll make resorts, we'll put hotels on the beaches, and we'll get access to the natural gas off the coast. Meanwhile, what you'll get in return is to enjoy decades of destabilization, refugee crises, and the permanent hatred of your own people. Do we have a deal? It's ludicrous, and everyone knows it. I mean, everyone knows it unless you're like Ben Shapiro or something. Honestly, I've said it before, that trope about superior Jewish intelligence has been forever debunked since October 7th. Look, in my opinion, this is all a ploy. He doesn't mean any of this. I've told you before, never take Trump literally. Never take him literally. All of his public statements are either bargaining tactics or sheer misdirection, always. That's all it is. If you're going to react every time that man opens his mouth, you're not going to survive the next 4 years. So you need to calm down, keep a cool head. So enough about that nonsense. Let's talk about reality. Okay, the reality is that Trump, as I've said many times, is a mascot of the a-national owners and controllers of global financialized capital. He's not pro-American, he's not pro-Zionist, he's pro-profit, personal profit. His loyalty is always going to bend towards whoever has the higher net worth. And he's absolutely in the camp of the GCC, and so is Elon Musk. It's the same thing with him. Never take a word he says seriously. You know, Musk would not have even been able to buy Twitter without Gulf money. And Trump, I mean, we just saw him at the UFC match with the head of the Saudi Sovereign Wealth Fund. He's a Khaliji president. I told you before, he's a Khaliji president. His son-in-law, Jared Kushner, is the head of that investment firm called Affinity Partners. And that investment firm is nothing but a front for the UAE and for Saudi Arabia, for their money. It's their money. Trump received himself tens of millions of dollars from the Saudis and from the Emiratis in the form of investments and partnerships and agreements and mutual projects and so forth. Netanyahu's net worth is maybe somewhere between 10 and $20 million. Mohammed bin Salman's net worth is roughly 50,000 times more than that, okay? Between Saudi Arabia and the UAE, you're talking about trillions, not billions, not millions, not billions, trillions of dollars. And if you don't want to talk about Netanyahu himself, personally, as an individual, talk about Israel. The entire GDP of Israel is a fraction of the money that's controlled by the GCC. Not to mention that 60% of Israel's GDP is literally debt financed. So in my opinion, the only part of what Trump said that is actually true is that he wants to see Gaza rebuilt, and he wants the Gulf to do it, and he wants affinity partners to be involved. When he says America will own Gaza, what he actually means is, the translation of that is that he wants himself and his son-in-law to have a share in the development of Gaza as financed by Saudi Arabia and the UAE. You know, he wants a Trump Tower on Salah ad-Din Street. He wants a Trump hotel on the beach. And he wants the region to be stable and to be peaceful, because stability and peace is the only way that the region can be profitable. I mean, if you pay close attention during that joint press conference with Netanyahu, he was actually quite vague in his language, deliberately, in my opinion. He was quite vague. His wording, he left it up to the listener to decide how to interpret what he was saying. So the Zionists will interpret it one way and other people can interpret it another way. At the official press conference, he never said the words transfer the Palestinians or expel the Palestinians to neighboring countries. All he said was that neighboring countries should build places for where the Palestinians could live, where they won't be shot at and destroyed and so on, which is exactly what the GCC is going to do. They're going to build places like that inside of Gaza. In fact, I think it's quite noteworthy that he talked a lot about how horrific the situation is for the people in Gaza. He talked about that a lot. How they're not safe, how they're attacked, how they're being killed and shot at and bombed and so forth, and how terrible it is. All while the killer is standing right next to him, forced to listen to how disgraceful and how inhuman Trump thinks it is. Having to listen to Trump talk about the right of the Palestinian people to live in peace and safety. People who he described as a wonderful people who built a civilization. I mean, you can see the confusion on Netanyahu's face when he's saying these things. It was an indirect condemnation of Netanyahu's actions. You know, Trump was very proud of those Abraham Accords. He was very proud of that. And I think he basically feels that Israel betrayed that accomplishment. And it's known anyway, it's known. And it's very clear that Trump has a personal loathing for Netanyahu, as does pretty much anyone else who ever had to deal with the man. No one can stand it. You know, people always talk about that Miriam Adelson, the Zionist, who gave Trump's campaign something like $200 million, and they think that that means that Trump has been bought and paid for by the Zionists. But I'll tell you what, Saudi Arabia gave Affinity Partners $2 billion. So I think that just making the suggestion that the Palestinians should be expelled, a suggestion that he knows full well is going to get shot down, well, that's what Adelson paid for. That's all she'll get. Services rendered. But what the Saudis paid for with that $2 billion, they'll get. And there's no ambiguity about what the Saudis want. They've had the same position for over 20 years. It's the Out of Peace Initiative of 2002, the establishment of a Palestinian state. And that is something that they have reiterated repeatedly. And they've gone on a diplomatic and an economic campaign across the world, across Europe, to try to galvanize support for that. And they're succeeding. And all of Israel's actions since October the 7th have just accelerated and facilitated the pursuit of that goal. They're making it inevitable. I'll mention something here about the natural gas off the coast of Gaza, because I've heard a lot of people online, I've seen a lot of people online who look like they're newcomers to the Palestinian issue, like they just got on board after October 7th, and they're acting like this gas is a new discovery. No, it's known. And there are exploration and extraction contracts with the Palestinian Authority. The PA is the designated controller of those resources, not Israel and not Hamas. The PA will return to Gaza and they will be the government there. Probably won't be Mahmoud Abbas, won't be Abu Mazen, but it will be the PA. Hamas is going to be disarmed, they'll be disbanded, and there will be reconstruction. I still think that China will be recruited, or anyway, they should be recruited to manage the rebuilding, but of course, Egypt is going to be involved heavily. They'll be heavily involved in that. They'll probably do most of the heavy lifting, as well as the Gazans themselves. But of course, the bulk of the funding is going to come from the Gulf. As you know, there'll be smaller investors, Turkey and so on, probably China. See, the Saudis want to have a Palestinian state. They want to have a deal for a Palestinian state, if not the actual establishment of it, before they develop Gaza, before they rebuild it, before the reconstruction starts, before they sink billions and billions of dollars into reconstruction, just to have Israel bomb it again. So they either want the establishment of a state or they want a deal for an establishment of a state. So I think that Trump is just trying to pressure them to start the reconstruction now, before there's a deal. That's why he's pretending that America is going to take over Gaza and kick out the Palestinians. You know, it's just a pressure tactic. It's just a bluff, you know, saying like to the Gulf, if you don't move on it now, we're going to do it and you're going to lose out. But again, everyone knows that this is a completely empty threat. Trump is not about to spend a dime rebuilding Gaza, and he's not about to send American troops over there. There's no question about that. I mean, even now, you've got that Eric Prince and his mercenaries over there in Gaza now, and that's being portrayed by many as an American private military company. But Eric Prince works for Abu Dhabi. So in my opinion, Netanyahu has a surprise coming. You know, when he had that speech before Congress, it became very clear that he has no comprehension of the fact that we're not living in the 1990s, that America is not now what it was, and that Israel isn't what it was to America at that time. And he doesn't seem to recognize how much the world has changed and how much the region has changed drastically. So he might actually believe that what Trump said is feasible. But anyone who is not a delusional psychomaniac knows that it's nonsense. It's increasingly looking like there's going to be elections in Israel relatively soon, and Netanyahu is going to lose. Looks like probably Naftali Bennett's party will win. And Bennett has very good ties with the GCC, with the UAE especially. You know, the Emiratis have been in touch with all sorts of opposition politicians in Israel. Even Bennett himself, he just came to Abu Dhabi at the end of January. So whatever daydream that Netanyahu is having right now, I think it's a bit like Joe Pesci at the end of Goodfellas, you know? He thinks that he's about to get everything that he ever wanted for himself, but actually he's about to get what we've always wanted for him. But I should say that there is a genuine concern. I have a genuine concern with regards to reconstruction about what the people are going to do in Gaza, where they're going to live during the rebuilding process. That's a genuine issue, in my opinion. The Gaza Strip has been completely demolished. So that's my only real concern about all of this, you know, that maybe Jordan, for example, they might cave to America's requests, thinking that it's for humanitarian reasons. And then they'll, of course, stipulate that the Palestinians must be guaranteed the right to return to Gaza after reconstruction is complete. So I don't think it's impossible that Jordan might succumb to the pressure, but I don't think it's likely. It's not impossible, but it's also not likely. There's other solutions, obviously. But to be honest, even in that worst case scenario, in the worst case scenario of the Gazans being relocated, the power dynamics in the region are such now, currently, that I don't think either the US nor Israel will have the ability to prevent the Gazans from returning to Gaza. So what else? I should say, look, don't react to every headline you see, and certainly don't react to everything that Trump says or everything Netanyahu says. It's embarrassing. Calm down.
People that has done the dismantling. And who better? Right, so the events of October 7th have now been completely and utterly dismantled. And it is one of Israel's own people that has done the dismantling. And who better, frankly, to tell the truth now, the guy who ordered it. Former Defense Minister Yoav Gallant, now wanted on an international arrest warrant, has finally admitted that so-called Hannibal directives were ordered on the night of October 7th. Orders for the IDF, as they are, to target their own people, their own civilians, in order to prevent them from being taken hostage. There has been circulatory imagery and videos for months seemingly to bear this explanation out. There have been statements from eyewitnesses claiming to have seen the directive being implemented. But now a government official, the guy in charge of defense at that time, has admitted they were used. And that means every single death from that night can no longer be levied solely at Hamas without an independent investigation taking place. An independent investigation must now be carried out to ascertain the absolute truth. Because Israel's entire justification for all of the atrocities they have been committing in Gaza, all justified off the back of what they have claimed to have been an indiscriminate attack by Hamas only on one night back in October of 2023, where Zionists across the world still to this day claim it to be the biggest slaughter of Jewish people since the Holocaust. Well, how many of those Jewish people were actually killed by their own side then, under their own nation's orders? We must know. Right, so the world's biggest open secret has finally been confirmed by former Defense Minister Yoav Gallant in an interview he's given to Israel's Channel 12, where he has admitted that the Hannibal directive was issued on the night of October 7th, 2023. He was asked, when you see the convoys crossing the border with Israeli hostages, what crosses your mind? Is the Hannibal directive something you are thinking about in that moment? This term was then clarified by the co-host, who said, just to explain, the Hannibal directive says to shoot to kill when there is a vehicle containing an Israeli hostage. Gallant then went on to answer saying, I want you to understand that the ability of the defense minister to give timely operational instructions when everything is happening is very limited. But when pressed on the matter of whether or not the Hannibal directive was given, he then went on to say, I think that tactically in various places it was given, and in other places it was not given, and that is a problem. No, the problem is giving such a barbaric order at all, but having admitted that it was given in some places, but not others, yet the implication of that it was being carried out in those places anyway. The need for a thorough, impartial, and above all, independent investigation has never been more obvious, never been clearer. And Israel have consistently blocked any attempts to do so, and it's pretty obvious why now, isn't it? This is an important moment, though, because this is the very first time public admission of this has been made by an Israeli government official of the time that the Hannibal directive was indeed used. But it was more than a year ago that Israeli outlet Yedioth Aharonoth stated that an unambiguous order by high command had been given to use the Hannibal directive across the entire region. It was later in July that Israeli newspaper Haaretz picked up on it, reporting that an order of not a single vehicle can return was reportedly given on October 7th as well. There was also the admission given by Israeli reserve pilot Colonel Nofer Rez, who described October 7th as mass Hannibal, and that was all the way back in November of 2023. The Hannibal Directive, for those still not familiar with this term, was an evil military doctrine cooked up in secret in the 1980s before later becoming public knowledge that amounted to a national murder order, that any Israeli taken hostage, be they military or civilian, be killed by their own side rather than let them be taken hostage and be later used in the hostage exchange deal. Fundamentally, Israel put keeping their Palestinian hostages above the lives of their own people. It was supposedly done away with in 2016, but here it is, now officially alive and kicking and still being used, despite those claims in the past to the contrary. But then they were Israeli claims. Most moral army in the world, folks, that carries out orders to kill their own people. The night of October 7th was called Operation Al-Aqsa Flood by Hamas, who captured some 251 hostages that night from the Nova Music Festival and the kibbutzim nearby. Israel reportedly warned something was coming, both from Egypt and from their own intelligence services, who chose to let it happen and put their own people in harm's way. In fact, the Nova Music Festival was reportedly moved from the Negev desert to just north of Gaza in a move many suspect to have been intentional, to purposely put more of their own people in harm's way. Israel unleashed their Hannibal directive on that night. We now have this confirmed by the former defense minister. So all the shots of helicopters and tanks firing, all conveniently deployed just where they needed them, and the reports of people being killed by Israeli fire by eyewitnesses have now all been reinforced. All despite 15 months of Hamas being blamed solely for the devastation of that night. Nobody is excusing their role. Nobody is excusing the fact they instigated it. But exactly how much of what they have been accused of versus Israel's assault, which we now know included the ordering of the killing of their own people, well, we need to have this investigated, don't we? There can be no acceptable reason for Israel to refuse now. Say for this news, well, just not getting reported, because as sure as night follows day, Western media are completely ignoring this. I'm sure that won't shock you. So what has prompted Gallant to confess all of this now? Well, he's unlikely to face arrest in Israel, is he? Though if I'd lost family members on that night, Israeli or no matter how Zionist my proclivities might be, I'd want to know who killed my loved ones. Was it Hamas or was it my own country? Are some people so far gone out there they simply don't care? And this is why Gallant can be so open and so seemingly unafraid of any repercussions. At least as long as he doesn't leave Israel, I suppose, at any rate. But Gallant's confessions didn't end there, making all this smack as some vengefulness on his part, on his former government colleagues. And given Gallant has announced he's quitting the Knesset shortly, possibly figures he's got little left to lose now. For example, he's laid into Itamar Ben-Gvir for intentionally inciting repercussions when he stormed the Al-Aqsa compound and mosque in Jerusalem and proceeded to pray there, forbidden from doing so as the Jewish population are. And he also took aim at Benjamin Netanyahu over his consistent wrecking of ceasefire agreement after ceasefire agreement, though Gallant's argument was we could have brought back more of our hostages and released fewer of our Palestinian ones that they held if an agreement had been reached sooner. Part of that, he also lays blame at the feet of Finance Minister Bezalel Smotrich, though, for threatening to bring down the government every time a ceasefire deal neared completion. Don't worry, though, Yoav, Netanyahu has been taking more from the West Bank, so the dungeons will still be full, I'm sure. It's not exactly going to surprise many, this admission, though, I shouldn't have thought. We've seen Israel raise Gaza from north to south, and they've killed more of their own hostages than they've ever rescued, never having put the hostages first. Few, even in Israel, even believe that. And all of the protests outside Netanyahu's home and elsewhere by hostage families and their supporters calling him out for that does bear that out. They don't believe he's done enough either. Acceptable casualties, their own fault for getting captured, perhaps. Maybe that's the pervading attitude in Netanyahu's government. Certainly that was also borne out in Gallant's interview, because he was the defense minister, of course. And despite 251 hostages being taken by Hamas, instead of negotiating for their release, as always happened before, this time he chose a military response. He apparently insisted on this, despite the warnings of the harm it could do to civilians. And given he'd thrown Netanyahu under the bus in this interview already, this doesn't seem like something he would say to shield Netanyahu from blame over. More, this is just Gallant getting a lot of this atrocity off his chest. There's also no secret that trust broke down between Netanyahu and Gallant either, which resulted in Gallant getting sacked. If Gallant did indeed start the genocide in Gaza, Netanyahu has needed no encouragement to keep it going, after all. Gallant appears to be just the latest in a line of Israeli officials, others like Yaron Finkelman or Herzi Halevi and more, who have taken responsibility for their own failures when it came to security. The only person who refuses to do that is Netanyahu himself, because if he did, it would trigger that investigation into what happened that night, wouldn't it? What lapses there were. And he's determined we should not learn what they are, because it would, I am more certain now than ever, destroy him and his government, expose how they may well have engineered that night, and certainly expose how many of their own people they likely killed themselves. Justification of that night used, as it has been, weaponized by politicians across the world to justify what Israel has done, when there can be absolutely no justification for genocide. Now they've raised Gaza, though, Donald Trump would love to see all the people there relocated to Egypt and Jordan, of course, so it can be rebuilt, you understand. Well, Jordan have now declared any attempt to forcibly move the people of Gaza into Jordan would be a declaration of war. So is the Middle East about to explode down yet another front? Get all the details of that story in this video recommendation here as your suggested next watch.
with Netanyahu that sort of spoke to this, Rania, that have caused, major diplomatic ructions all over the Middle East. I think we may have a clip of Trump's comments that some of Trump's comments I'd like to play, and then, get into some of the implications of this.
The only reason the Palestinians want to go back to Gaza is they have no alternative. It's right now a demolition site. This is just a demolition site. Virtually every building is down. They're living under fallen concrete that's very dangerous and very precarious. They instead can occupy all of a beautiful area with homes and safety, and they can live out their lives in peace and harmony instead of having to go back and do it again. The U.S. will take over the Gaza Strip, and we will do a job with it too. We'll own it and be responsible for dismantling all of the dangerous unexploded bombs and other weapons on the site, level the site and get rid of the destroyed buildings, level it out, create an economic development that will supply unlimited numbers of jobs and housing for the people of the area. Do a real job, do something different, just can't.
So, Rania, Donald Trump's proposal is for the U.S. to colonize Gaza, to remove all of the Gazans, to take all of the area and turn it into an economic development site. Now, of course, the administration's been trying to walk this back and say it's just a temporary removal. But of course, this has created mass panic in close U.S. allies, Egypt and Jordan, because those are the two most obvious areas Palestinians would go to. They do not want that. Palestinians do not want to leave. Anyway, now there's all these ructions. But your thoughts on Trump's comments?
I mean, it was just the most bizarre press conference on so many levels, but so were most things that happened in Trump 2.0 era, I guess. The theatrics of it, I mean. But logistically speaking, I don't think this is logistically possible. because of what you just said. I mean, Jordan and Egypt would be the obvious places that Israel's dream is to send the Palestinians of Gaza into Egypt and take over Gaza. And then, of course, send the Palestinians in the West Bank to ethnically cleanse them into Jordan. These are red lines for the Jordanians and the Egyptians. Biden actually tried to sell that policy to the Egyptians when the genocide in Gaza began. And they said back then, they said, no, I mean, I don't think there is any amount of money you can give Egypt to accept ethnically cleansed Palestinians into their territory. Not because the Egyptian government cares about Palestinians. Obviously, they don't. They have normalized with Israel. It's a dictatorship funded by the U.S. to suppress its population from doing anything that challenges U.S. hegemony and Israeli hegemony in the region. But they do see Palestinian refugees inside their territory as a potential security threat, especially if their leadership is Hamas, who they see as an extension of the Muslim Brotherhood. So it's just not something that Egypt is going to allow. They see it as a destabilizing force. And the same goes for Jordan. And you've seen them reiterate repeatedly since Trump has been making these comments over and over again that they will not be allowing the displacement of Palestinians into their territory. You even saw Saudi Arabia release a statement after Trump made these comments, signaling that they would oppose this as well. So it's not logistically possible. On top of that, it is blatant, brutal ethnic cleansing. There's no way to cover that up. I mean, I know the New York Times would like to cover it up, even though they hate Trump so much. They just said displacement. That's ethnic cleansing is what Trump is calling for. It's just blatant, brutal colonialism. And you know what? I guess it's at least somewhat refreshing to see it said out loud about like what it is, rather than these like silly terms that you'll hear from, people who like to put a mask on everything depraved that the U.S. and Israel do. The other thing I'll add is that the entire Western imperialist system spent 15 months pouring billions and billions and billions of dollars in weapons into Israel to decimate Gaza and eliminate Palestinians either by killing them or pushing them out. It didn't work. So after 15 months of the most advanced weaponry that humans have been able to create, was not able to do that. I'm not sure why this proposal in the minds of these people seems workable. It doesn't to me. They're going to run into resistance. People fought and died to stay in Gaza, and they will do it again if they have to. And as we saw, Israel did not defeat Hamas. There is still resistance in Gaza. So I just think it's not serious. It's very dangerous. If Trump and his administration and the Israelis were to try to impose this final solution, because that's what it looks like, that's what it is, a final solution in Nazi terminology, onto Gaza, the repercussions would be completely unpredictable, but incredibly destabilizing for the entire region.
No, I think that's a very good point. I mean, I don't even know who came up with this. I mean, part of why Trump is walking this back is not just the allies of the United States in the West Asia and North Africa, but even inside of the Republican Party. Lindsey Graham, who has been one of the most pro-genocidal individuals over the entire course of the Israeli genocide there in Gaza, of course, basically justifying the Israeli actions by comparing them to the atomic bombing of Hiroshima and Nagasaki. So giving you a sense, like one of the most genocidal people, he actually stated that no senator of either party supports this, that it was a total non-starter, that obviously it would require Americans to go fight, which nobody wants. So a lot there, but I think you said it well, Rania. I wanted to get your thoughts on another issue. You already mentioned this Trump USAID, attacks on USAID, which have brought a lot of different types of opposition, but it's also brought into the conversation some of the more sort of regime change type elements that are under USAID. Chris Murphy, the senator from Connecticut, actually has been one of the number one people sort of promoting this. Before we get into this, I want to just play a clip of Senator Murphy.
So Congress writes a law that dictates how USAID spends money to make sure that we're countering Chinese influence inside Africa, to make sure that we don't lose access to critical mineral supplies, so that we're fighting back against Hezbollah in Lebanon. So
Well, there it is, Rania. I think there's a few things to say about this. The first thing I think that's important in terms of framing it is it's at least finally proving what many of us have said for many years, that USAID is a form of imperialist soft power, and that it does many things which many people find unobjectionable. That's why it's soft power, because, some of the things are giving people food, people are in famine, things like that. But that nestled under that, it's always been a vehicle for cover identities for the CIA, for its own programs that are aimed at different forms of regime change, major funding of media abroad to shape the narrative in countries in a more pro-US direction. So that's being proven true. But, the thing about it, Rania, that is notable to me is the very fact that Chris Murphy and others feel this is the way that they have to defend USAID lets you know that Donald Trump's attack on USAID are in a way about something different. And I think that's what's important to note about this. Like, the way you look at how they're attacking it, it basically is designed to bolster many of the already existing narratives of the Trump administration to back their billionaire agenda, specifically by using racism in a divisive way. Like, when you look at the White House press secretary, when she's running down the list of USAID programs that are bad, that they don't like. By the way, some of them weren't even USAID programs. But that being said, it's all about DEI, so it's building into that narrative. Obviously, when they're targeting it, they are targeting the humanitarian aid aspect, and they're trying to make it seem like, wow, how terrible that America would give food to non-white people in the global South who are suffering from famine and hunger. Trump also this morning opening up an attack on the funding on the US media by USAID. And of course, we at Breakthrough News are no fans of the mainstream media. But the reason why Trump hates the mainstream media is because they truthfully report on many of his misdeeds, and he doesn't want to do that. So in a way, I feel I can understand that some people are like excited about this, like, oh, they're going after USAID, but they're not going after it because of all the like CIA spook regime change stuff. They're doing it in order to continue to build the racist narrative around quote unquote DEI, which basically means let's make sure the government does nothing to address the historic and ongoing discrimination against Black people in particular and many others in the United States. Let's also make sure that the US government does nothing to help anyone in the global South suffering from climate change, hunger, poverty, or anything like that. And let's also try to muzzle the media as much as we possibly can so that the billionaire agenda of Trump and his friends who are trying to rip off working class Americans and make it a lot easier for corporations to jack up prices, lay people off, bust their unions, make it less safe on the job, that won't get reported on. That is what they're hoping to do with this attack on USAID. And then they're going to move it under Marco Rubio inside of the State Department. And as you mentioned earlier, I mean, this is Mr. Regime Change. So, as much as people want to maybe celebrate this, and I can understand that given some of these other aspects, I think it's deeply pernicious, and it's all of a piece with everything we're seeing from Trump, which is designed to bolster an agenda that, again, at its core is designed to rip off average, everyday working class Americans, transfer trillions of dollars to the richest people in this country, and cut many of the most critical programs that help people survive on a day-to-day basis. And I think we have to keep that context in mind when we consider what's happening here and recognize the U.S. will never stop regime change under any context, in any circumstance, as long as the government is imperialist. So if you think that's what's happening, that's not what's happening. And Chris Murphy will get what he wants. They will reassure him that Ukraine, Congo, all of that will be safe. But, ultimately it'll be, anyway, to the benefit of Trump's narratives.
I mean, I think that I agree with everything you said, and I'll add to it. I mean, this is just a contradiction in the ruling class, right? Like they're not in agreement on a very theatrical thing, which is obviously the end game is U.S. domination of the world's resources. Chris Murphy is of the liberal imperialist flavor, and he feels he's that mindset of we have to do this under the auspices of humanitarianism and human rights and equality and all of these things. Like diversity and inclusion is a part of that liberal imperialist order. Like we want there to be people of all backgrounds carrying out imperialism. We want to make space for all of them. And then we also want to have these programs that give us cover for, like, yes, we do care about democracy building and civil society and human rights. Whereas that sort of, Trumpian, Republican, right-wing version of imperialism is just more brazen, more in your face, more Marco Rubio style, actually, where, yeah, they want to play the culture war game because that's a part of their domestic agenda and in their global agenda in many ways as well, to use that as a divisive issue. But also they just want to be more straightforward and brutal. They still want to, go after China. They still want to regime change Russia, whatever Trump says, like the US imperialism wants to do what US imperialism wants to do. They still want to install the dictators they want to install in Latin America. They just have a more brazen, in your face, direct, and also like sort of hollowing out money making way of doing it, because they also want to make money off of all that government money that's going to these kinds of programs. So it to me, it looks like a theatrical performance. Yes, do I enjoy seeing certain programs get shut down or temporarily, I should say, stop functioning in a place like Lebanon that work to undermine this country's sovereignty that I'm sitting in right now? Sure, I guess I'll get some popcorn and watch that. But at the end of the day, this is not some attack on the regime change imperialist system at all whatsoever. It's kind of just like a vying for power of who gets to run it and of who the resources go to exactly. And of just, who gets to be in charge. That's it. Of who gets to be in charge and what the overall ideology of it is.
Yeah, I think that's a great point. And I think the thing I'll close on is to speak to your point of it's just who's going to control it. They're not changing the name. They're just going to say move it under State Department. So it'll still be USAID. So they'll still be using aid programs to cover CIA type situations. So that definitely will not change. And Sam Sachs from Means Morning News pointed this out about the memo where they were telling people who had to come into work. And it was like, people who are mission critical and also people attached to specialty programs. And the question he was raising, which I think is, underlining a lot of what we're saying, he said, I wonder what those specialty programs are. So, I think we can see what's really going on here. And I think it speaks to the need for independent politics in the United States. I think so many people are always looking for either the Democrats, the Republicans to come with some agenda that's going to do something. They're trying to find some silver lining in this, that, or the third. But as you said earlier, the issue of agency, I think we have to take our agency back, and we have to develop a politics that can say we should stop sanctioning, going to war, invading, regime changing these countries and all those types of policies. But we actually should be working with people in the global south to address the challenges of hunger, famine, climate change, poverty, immigration, and so on and so forth. And those things we can do those things. They are mutually exclusive. We can get rid of regime change. In fact, we kind of have to if we want to improve the lives of people and help address them. But the idea that we should just, abandon the great challenges of humanity in our time, I think is ridiculous. But we can make that case to people in a way that I think is compelling, but it has to be made, and we can't be looking for the Democrats or for the Republicans or for whoever. We can't just let them set the tone and set the agenda for how every issue is viewed. So
Yeah, we're not sycophants for any political party or administration. We will cover stories honestly and fairly and openly. And if you were watching this USAID story, you might have thought, this is all amazing news, right? We're shutting down USAID. It's gone. It's leaving us. But many of you who watch our show know just how terrible USAID has been, funding regime change operations around the world, drag shows in Peru, funding the creation of COVID-19 viruses. Mike Pompeo, formerly at the CIA, then at the State Department, funneling money into Venezuela, all sorts of shady stuff, pretty awful stuff. The list is actually endless, but is it dead? Or did little Marco Rubio just get his hands on it at the State Department? Yesterday, journalist Dan Cohen tweeted this. He said, yesterday, Elon Musk was calling USAID a criminal organization that must die. Now it's confirmed that USAID has been reshuffled into Marco Rubio's State Department, and Musk's top influencers are going along with Trump administration's charade. Dan Cohen, independent journalist from his own media organization, Uncaptured Media, joins us now. Dan, great to see you. It seems like, there was a lot of sort of rah-rah championing, you get these sort of like conservative influencers, and they just fall right in line with whatever is being said from the Elon side of things without sort of questioning everything. Am I right?
Yeah, it's kind of like the mirror image of the Harry Sisson, or however you say his last name, ex-influencers that were pro-Biden, and just whatever Biden did was great and perfect, and we all had to hail him. And now there are so many on X, and frankly far more, because Elon Musk owns X, that are just so nakedly partisan, pro-Trump, that it's fairly obvious what's happening. But I mean, I think you gave a really good rundown earlier of the chicanery that USAID has been involved in. I mean, just in the reports, I just look back at the reports that I've done with Redacted, whether it was Ukraine's digital transformation, which was completely a project of USAID, ushering in the Fourth Industrial Revolution, to basically create technocracy. Your entire life is in your phone. That's a project of USAID that was done in Ukraine and exported around the world to Ethiopia, to Colombia. There was an event a year and a half ago or so here in DC that Samantha Power hosted, called DIA in DC. DIA being the digital transformation app, the digital ID app that was created. And I really encourage all of the viewers to go back and check out those reports that we did on Redacted. We did like a mini documentary about DIA, and that's one of their big projects. I know you talked about Venezuela, all of Mike Pompeo and under the previous Trump administration, funneling huge amounts of money, something I read even $1 billion into Venezuela to line the pockets of guys like Juan Guaido, who are now living high on the hog in Miami, Carlos Vecchio, all these figures who it's just a total ripoff for the United States and violates the sovereignty of so many countries. The other one that I think of is Peter Hotez and his neglected tropical disease complex that he has lured over to basically invent drugs to test all over the world on Africa and Latin America and Asia. So it's incredible the amount of dirt there is on USAID.
So how much do we trust Marco Rubio then to absorb what might be left over? I'm so curious about this rebranding of Marco Rubio. This is the same guy who thought that Russia blew up its own Nord Stream pipeline, who was constantly going on any news media that would have him to bang the war drum about how we need to go over Iran, China, Russia, you name it. He would show up and powder his face and say things that were so stupid. But now he seems to have this very pro-America first rhetoric and is talking about how we don't really need to do that. We need to secure our own borders. We don't need to. He's using even the term multipolar world. So what do you make of this rebranding of Marco Rubio?
Yeah, I mean, to me, it's very indicative of the times we live in a way where multipolarity is a real thing. And the U.S., until a week ago, was living in the age of, we're perfect and the rest of, Russia and China are evil empires that we have to fight on every front. And Marco Rubio acknowledged that China is going to be a rich and powerful country. Welcome to, 2025. I think it also shows how Trump has basically conquered the political machine in Washington, D.C., that someone like Marco Rubio, who, when Trump ran in 2016, when they were both running for president in 2016, Marco Rubio publicly stated that Donald Trump will never be president. And he's now had to kiss the rings. He's now his Secretary of State, of course, so he's been rewarded. But it's obvious that Marco Rubio has had to completely change what he says in order to stay relevant in American politics. That doesn't mean, I trust Marco Rubio as far as I can throw him, which I couldn't even get close to him. Now he's surrounded by, security.
Well,
so
he is small, so you could probably throw him pretty far. You're a strong guy.
Well, I've been eating more, so that'll help. But I mean, Marco Rubio. Now we see USAID is there's so many moving parts here. Okay, like I said, like I showed in that tweet, Elon Musk is saying USAID is the worst thing ever. It's evil. He even retweeted Milo Yiannopoulos saying that it's a terrorist organization, which was pretty wild. And then you have Marco Rubio saying, well, my criticism of it was much more mild, what he publicly said. And then he said it's going to be moved into the State Department, where he's going to be in control of it. I suppose that empowers Marco Rubio, who has been a long-term hawk, especially in Latin America, and now he's in Costa Rica today. He's making his first tour as the top diplomat. But I think basically, the big complaint from there's sort of a couple levels of deception going on. On one hand, you have like Trump and Marco Rubio were Trump. I mean, the Venezuela attempted coup in 2019, trying to put this guy Juan Guaido into Miraflores Palace in Caracas and pretend this guy's the president. That was under the Trump administration. Now, granted, that was a John Bolton, Mike Pompeo, Mike Pence thing that Trump thought was going to be an easy victory. And obviously, it did not work. Marco Rubio was a huge supporter of that. And there are photos that I tweeted of Marco Rubio and Donald Trump with Carlos Vecchio, who was Juan Guaido's fake ambassador to the U.S. And Carlos Vecchio got a huge amount of money from USAID. So they're not really being honest about they were on board with all of this stuff until 5 minutes ago. Now, at the same time, the reaction from basically the Democratic side of the deep state, I mean, is just rich. I'm sure everyone's enjoying that. Watching, I watched like Chris Coons, Senator Chris Coons, and AOC and Ilhan Omar and all. Their big complaint is, one of their big complaints is, well, Congress controls USAID. Since when does Congress care what the president does? The Congress has completely abdicated its responsibility to vote on every war that the president has initiated. So if Donald Trump was doing exactly what Congress wanted, initiating wars or regime change operations, they would be silent. So they're completely hypocritical. And then they complain about Elon Musk being a billionaire with too much influence in the government, as if George Soros and then now Alexander Soros were not visiting the White House multiple times per month for the last 4 years. That's just standard practice here in Washington. So the opposition is completely discredited, which is dangerous in a way, because we do, need to be able to have a real opposition. And what I'm saying is not an endorsement, obviously, of Trump or Musk or any of this. So, I mean, there are so many questions at this point of, well, is this USAID shutdown going to be long-term? Is it, I guess now it's just being reshuffled into the State Department. What was the real difference between the State Department? I think it's also part of it is the Trump administration is remaking Washington in its image. So it's part of the same process of getting rid of, the 51 intelligence officials who signed the letter saying that the Hunter Biden laptop was Russian disinformation. Like, those guys are out. John Brennan is out. These people who conspired to destroy Trump in a totally shady way, they shouldn't have any power. They should be run out of Washington. They should be investigated. And I think that's basically what Trump is doing, and the same in USAID, where there's not really much oversight in there, and they're doing all these all kinds of crazy programs. So that's my sense of it.
Well, you're going to be watching this closely. I mean, this will be the big question: how much of this gets reshuffled under Marco Rubio and kind of swept under the rug, and gets sort of absorbed by the White House in a way?
You see, for instance, Chris Murphy from Connecticut is saying we need to rise up now to protect USAID because it makes us safer in the world every single day. So he's calling for some kind of social unrest. So the extreme irony here is that USAID could cause the unrest in our own country that it's trying to sow abroad for people fighting for its own nefarious purposes. I mean, talk about meta, right? So anyhow, thanks for watching that for us, Dan.
Dan Cohen from Uncaptured.
Come see us on tour in Dallas, Austin, Baltimore, Hartford, Connecticut, Syracuse, New York, Atlantic City, Levittown, Cohost, and Providence, Rhode Island. Go to jimmydore.com for the link for the cheapest tickets. Shadow of Ezra tweets out, Donald Trump just confirmed that Doge will be investigating the Pentagon.
Oh, boy.
The Pentagon has never passed one of their audits.
Right.
Never.
Or allowed one to happen, I believe.
They did have audits, but they didn't. Yeah, you're right.
You're not allowed to look at everything.
Here's what Trump said. Here we go.
What we're doing, if you look at what has just taken place with respect to some of the investments that have been made on another agency that people have been talking about for years, but nobody did anything about it. It's absolutely obscene, dangerous, bad, very costly. I mean, virtually every investment made is a con job. There's nothing of value to anybody unless there's a kickback scheme going on, which is possible. And we're going to be doing more and more of that. We're going to be looking at Department of Education. We're going to be looking at even our military. We're going to be looking at tremendous amounts of money, Peter, being spent on things that bear no relationship to anything and have no value. We're talking about trillions of dollars. It will be, in the end, trillions of dollars being absolutely wasted, and perhaps illegally. I would say certainly in many cases illegally, but perhaps illegally overall. And I'm very proud of the job that this group of young people, generally young people, but very smart people, they're doing. They're doing it at my insistence. It would be a lot easier not to do it, but we have to take some of these things apart to find the corruption. And we found tremendous corruption.
So if he wants to audit the Pentagon, I think he better keep his head on a swivel. Because you know what I'm talking about? Remember, this one saved his life? This one saved his life?
He is on a swivel. He has a straight up swivel head. He swivels right out of the way.
Wow. Let's hear that again.
What we're doing, if you look at what has just taken place with respect.
So is that Japan or China?
Japan.
Oh, look at that. And they both shop at the exact same store. Isn't that nice? Isn't that something?
It is nice.
Much easier for guys to dress. Ladies, they always have to be different. Guys, they don't care. They don't. If two women showed up wearing the same dress, it'd be a meltdown. Two guys show up wearing the exact same suit, exact same shirt, exact same tie. No problem. Isn't that funny? Okay, here we go.
To some of the investments that have been made on another agency that people have been talking about for years, but nobody did anything about it. It's absolutely obscene, dangerous, bad, very costly. I mean, virtually every investment made is a con job. There's nothing of value to anybody unless there's a kickback scheme going on, which is possible. And we're going to be doing more and more of that. We're going to be looking at Department of Education. We're going to be looking at even our military. We're going to be looking at tremendous amounts of money, Peter, being spent on things that bear no relationship to anything and have no value. We're talking about trillions of dollars. It will be, in the end, trillions of dollars being absolutely wasted, and perhaps illegally. I would say certainly in many cases illegally, but perhaps illegally overall. And I'm very proud of the job that this group of young people, generally young people, but very smart people, they're doing. They're doing it at my insistence. It would be a lot easier not to do it, but we have to take some of these things apart to find the corruption. And we found tremendous corruption.
Again, I think if you're against this, you either have a government contract or you've been propagandized. Just like Jon Stewart, I showed you in that earlier segment today. Jon Stewart's like, the Democrats are freaking out about democracy because that's what Trump's doing. And I'll add to that saying they're freaking out about an audit of the way the government spends its money. What? That's great.
Why has this been done before?
Why hasn't
the good presidents, not the bad one?
Yeah, why doesn't every president do this? So when Trump does something wrong, we call him out for it. Just like we called out his U.S. B-1 visa program. We called out his Gaza ethnic cleansing program. I don't understand how you could be against this. Just because you have okay, there's three reasons. You have a government contract. B, you've been propagandized by the corporate media because they're losing their government contracts. Or C, you have a hate boner for Elon Musk. Now, again, we've called out Elon Musk over the age. We've called him out lots. But I'm all for this. But do I think that, see, here's the problem. So if Elon Musk is going to be the one who's going to audit the Pentagon, Elon Musk is a huge defense contractor. So I don't think he's going to be cutting. So that's where the conflict of interest comes in.
Do we get to see what they spent it on? That's what it comes down to me.
Yeah.
Who gets to look at this information? Because I have heard a lot of, now I've heard like where it's like 200, 400 million at a time for DEI things. And sometimes they'll tell you these ones that are like 11 million. And you're like, why are you even bringing that up? That's nothing.
Yeah.
But I don't believe any of these are DEI musicals or whatever the hell. Obviously it's cover to do, what are the things they're always doing? Drugs, people, weapons, is to do what the dirt we do around the world. And this is just the stupid cover they use. DEI programs.
So I'm all for it. I'm all, if they're going to audit the Pentagon, let's do it. The Pentagon hasn't passed. They tried to do 2 audits. The Pentagon.
How can you pass a budget when the Pentagon
can't pass an audit?
Yeah, I don't know how you can do that.
National security.
National security.
And the babies.
And, during Trump's first term, they increased the military budget $132 billion. That's not just once. That's every year in perpetuity. So that just goes to show. Can you imagine if they spent $132 billion in the top 10 cities in America, how ass-kicking those cities would be if they spent it right? A brand new, a new sports stadium costs maybe $1 billion or $2 billion. Imagine if the top 20 cities got a brand new, all the jobs it would create, imagine if they just, hey, we're gonna build a library in every neighborhood. We're gonna build.
I'm sure Kamala would have called for that, an audit of the Pentagon.
We're gonna hire.
We would have got that.
Yeah, I'm sure that How about if they hire a second teacher for every classroom? $132 billion. I'm sure it could pay for it.
Hire people that know something to teach instead of making it psychological training to teach kids how to behave as automatons, which is why we spend the most money and get the worst results in our education system because it wasn't designed to educate. It was designed to make it compliant.
That's right. So, and isn't it in Finland, Steph, where they have 3 teachers per classroom? 3.
Do they learn the topics?
3.
They all have master's degrees.
They all have master's degrees. 3
they
teachers.
Don't do ESL.
And their classroom
social learning.
And their classroom sizes are about 20. When Steph was teaching, her classroom size was 38.
Yeah, wow.
And she didn't have any helpers.
To 42.
Up to 42 students. She taught 180 kids a day. So, we could spend that money. We got the money. But again, we're not investing it in our own country. Imagine if every classroom had 3 teachers. How much? Wouldn't that be amazing? We can afford it. We can afford it.
Well, I think they are investing. They're investing in making our own country suck for us.
Yes.
They are investing it, but it's all to directly harm every aspect of your life all the time.
I think so. Again, I'm all if you're against this. I haven't heard a good argument yet against it.
Don't audit the Pentagon. That you don't I'm waiting for that.
What's that?
Oh, I can't wait for don't audit the Pentagon.
Yeah, I can't wait for the Democrats to say don't audit the Pentagon.
You know that's coming. Oh, the shitlibby of shitlibs going to come out and say that's a bad idea to audit the Pentagon. I can't wait.
I haven't heard a good argument against this kind of what's happening. The only argument I've heard is that people don't like Elon Musk.
Okay. Well,
that's all you got.
If you don't like him, you should want this even more. Because I want a guy I don't like to audit the Pentagon who I don't like. So that sounds great. Get somebody worse than Elon to really make him sweat.
Come see us on tour.
thieves and thugs out here. We're members of Congress. We're parents. We're teachers.
What part of you can't come in? Or we not comprende? No comprende? No DI. Kicketh, rocketh. I saw that they were up at the Department of Education. For what reason, I really don't know.
Again, that's important.
Were you told, are you making this decision to stand in front of this door on your own behalf, on behalf of the Department of Education, or were you told to come out here and block members of Congress and ride the desk? I'm doing my job.
So everybody's
What is that? We're doing our jobs. We're trying to save you.
It's non-responsive. Show them your ID. Were you told to stand here, or did you decide to stand here and block members of Congress from entering the Department of Education?
access to federal buildings.
We're allowed in there.
This kind of dumbass question is that? What kind of course he was told to do this. What you think he is trying to get a promotion? Of course someone sit him down there and say, don't let your tired ass in here. Think he wants to take this abuse? Look at the guy's face. It's like, in his head, he's vacationing right there in his mind. He's on a vacation. Thinking to himself, like, can I quit now? Is with that car payment? I don't know, if already a month behind. Can't really quit now. What if I punch this guy here with the bad hairline to my right? If I punch him, he looks like his jaw's made of glass. This is how they treat our, workers. This is how they treat us. Not so much in love with the essential workers today, were they?
So a private security contractor
Do you know who members of Congress are?
members of
Sure,
Congress.
we're all members of Congress.
Maybe he doesn't understand. Do you
A private
understand who
security
members of Congress are?
contractor is making the decision to block members of Congress from a public access entrance.
I don't think he knows.
You have the authority as a private security contractor to block members of Congress. That has been knighted and granted to you.
You have to at least let us go to the deck.
The Democratic Party is full of Karens.
Yeah. Too many goons out. Oh my, look at that. Who told you to do this? Open the door. So do you understand who members of Congress are? I got it, yeah. And you don't care. Who are we then? You don't care. We have a job to do. We're not dangerous people. We're not, I don't know, we're members security. There are no thieves and thugs out here. We're members of Congress. We're parents. We're teachers.
What part of you can't come in? Or we not comprende? No comprende? No DI. Kicketh, rocketh.
There's our ID, right there.
We were elected to do this.
This is our job.
This is our job. We're doing our job.
Oh, wow. You're securing this building against who?
Members of Congress.
Who are you protecting?
Against members of the people's
So
house.
this is the beginning of full transparency of this administration. That's right. The administration that talked about they're going to open the doors to all of these things and show the American public what is going on. They won't even open the door to this building.
Wah, wah, wah. I can't get in and do a grandstand. I can't get in and pout. Why? Are they staging an insurrection?
The members of Congress. We are not posing any threat here. No, we are not dangerous people. We have not done anything. We're trying to request a meeting, and they have a private security contractor who on his own is making decisions on behalf of the Department of Education.
On his own, huh? That's what you think. You mean to tell me you actually believe this guy got out his bed today and said, I'm going to go down to the Department of Education and stand in front of it and stop Congress people. I'm working on my own authority. Me, Joe Blow, by myself. I'm just going to go down here and do that. That's what you think. You don't think he wasn't hired to stop people from coming in here starting shit? Look at my guy's expression.
Look at this. He needs a raise immediately. Look at this guy. Look at his face. His expression says it all, man. And all of a sudden, I guess we got no concerns about COVID-19, do we? All of a sudden, everyone's, I see no mask and a bunch of hot, heavy breathing, pissed off Karens and Kens.
This man here. We are members of Congress. Come in. They're blocking us. See this man here, who is a federal employee. He told us. He's not. Are you a federal employee? No. Huh?
Yes.
No, he said he's a federal employee. We pay him. We raise money to make sure that we have a Department of Education. Everybody that's hired.
Look how polite this guy's being. He's being so polite. This guy, buy him a beer. You see this guy in real life, buy him a beer, pay for him to get a massage wherever he likes, a big steak dinner, whatever he likes. He has the patience of Job. The patience of Job. Look at him.
At the Department of Education are here because we pay for them to be here. He's standing here today, blocking the door.
And let him do his goddamn job, lady. That's all. Hey, man, the Democrats are doing nothing but showing up to make a scene. That's it. That's why they're filming this. Who do you think's filming it? Them. Why are they doing it? I don't know, to make a scene. That's it. And like maybe people in there working. You didn't come to do any work here. If you came to do some official business, you wouldn't just show up, right? You'd have an appointment, right? Okay, according to my research, guys, several Democratic members of Congress attempted to enter the Department of Education to seek information about President Trump's reported plans to dismantle the agency. Why? They think Trump's in there? Is that what they're going to do? Go talk to Trump? They were denied entry by security personnel who cited the need for an appointment or an escort.
And he can't give us a good reason why he's blocking this door.
Make sure they see right here, all access entrance.
Well, and I think it should be clear to parents in the United States, if you want to advocate on behalf of your children, you are not allowed to come into this building where you pay taxes. Parents who have children who are disabled, access is being blocked. You voted.
Watch you gonna bring up some suffering that black people go through. Watch it. She left something out. Let's see if she goes there.
You voted for members of Congress to advocate on behalf of your children, children with disabilities, for young women who have been victims of sexual assault in our classrooms, on our school grounds. Members of OCR are fighting for your children. We are not allowed in the building to talk to them. We are not allowed to advocate on.
Is that what you came here to do? I thought you just came here to start some shit. You came here to advocate for children? Why aren't you doing that in Congress? Why are you doing that here? The children aren't here. The children are at school. There are no children here, ma'am. Go do your job. Democrats are real good at looking like they're doing something when they ain't doing nothing, Johnson. When they are just performing, showing their ass, just doing a damn theatrical. They're doing a play. They call this one bats. As in dingbats, not cats, dingbats. That's what this is. This is a musical, okay? Pirates of Karens. The Karen, one flew over the Karen's cuckoo nest.
On behalf of America's children, America, we have a problem.
Now, everybody.
I came to grandstand. I want some airtime. This is annoying. And then here comes Maxine again. Because she got to talk again. Because she didn't hear it the first time.
All right, so this is the Department of Education. You've got members.
Look them in the eye. Come on, hold your face up. Look at him. Let him see you. This is him. Look at it. What's your name?
Come on.
Tell us your name. Give me that ID again.
Giving you the ID I shared it to you.
So what?
I showed you the ID.
You do what?
I showed you the ID.
Could you let me see the ID again? Huh?
No.
No? Will someone else ask him for the ID? Will you ask him for it? He won't let me see.
This guy is a professional, man. He's done this before. He's had to ignore rude Karens before. Yeah, he's had to ignore them before, man. He's too good at this. This is advanced level ignore bullshit. You know? That's what this is. This guy's highly trained, man. Wax on, wax off. He's very gifted in his ability to be very disciplined. Not to allow any of them to distract him, to enrage him, to get under his skin at all. He is emotionless. He left his body an hour ago. It's a shell of himself there, just saying the words that are necessary. I love this guy.
It again. You didn't see it. I didn't see it. They didn't see it. Will you ask him for it? He won't let me.
She doesn't even know where she is. Why are you asking her to answer his ID? She can't see anything. She's 96. The fact that she's standing unassisted is a major miracle. What do you want, Maxine? The answer is no. He said it politely. It's no. He didn't make it up. It's just what he was told to say and not to let you in.
Let me see it again. You didn't see it. I didn't see it. They didn't see it.
Excuse me?
Are you prepared to stand here all night if we decide to stay?
I guess, yeah.
All right, well, you just stay right there then. You just stay and stand.
Why aren't you letting us go to that desk like we were able to do last? Refusing to let us in.
His name is
And right here. What's his name?
His name is Jim Harefield.
And right here, they have armed officers as well, acting like we're dangerous. A year ago, I'd be able to walk into this building.
Well, it ain't a year ago, sir. Now, get your candy ass off the steps. It's over. You lost. And this is a waste of time. And this is why you lost. Because you like to perform. Do you like to perform or do you like to govern? What's this got to do with helping kids? What's this got to do with improving education? What does this have to do with anything that will affect our schools positively? Absolutely nothing. That's why you're all doing it. You're doing it because it's easy. This is easy to show up, come down here and get a photo op. This is easy. Go do something that makes the schools better. That's why they want to shut this shit down.
We want in. Tell them what it says on the door. All access entry.
You mentioned the Department of Education. What do you think when you saw Democratic lawmakers trying to get into the Department of Education earlier today?
Oh, I see the same ones. I see Maxine Waters, a lowlife. I see, all these people. They don't love our country. They don't love our country. We want great education. So they rank 40 countries in education. We're ranked dead last. But the good news is we're number one in one category. You know what that is? Cost per pupil. We spend more per pupil than any other country in the world. You look at Norway, Denmark, Sweden, various countries all up and down, Finland, China does very well in education. And then you look at us, we spend much more money than they do per pupil or any other way, but we spend much more money than they do. And yet we're ranked this year, Biden's last year, congratulations, Joe, we're ranked dead last. So what I want to see is education. Number one, I like choice. We all like choice. But beyond choice, long beyond choice, I want to see it go back to the states where great states that do so well have no debt. They're operated brilliantly. They'll be as good as Norway or Denmark or Sweden or any of the other highly ranked countries. They'll be, probably have 35 to 38 states will be right at the top. And the rest will come along. They'll have to come along competitively. And by the way, we'll be spending a lot less money. And we'll have great education.
Okay, guys. Well, let's get some facts to go with what was just said here. Okay, so first of all, I can't either confirm or deny Trump's claim about being dead last, about America coming in last. Now, it's true to say we're not burning up the charts when it comes to education. I saw it's like 14 for math and 15 or 16 for reading or something. It was that impressive. but there are various lists. So I don't know what list he's talking about, because there are, of course, more than 40. He said in the bottom of 40. I don't know what 40 that is. There are less than 40 states in the European Union. I don't know what he's talking about. Okay, so let's keep going. But he was accurate. He's accurate about the amount of money we spend. The United States spends more per child, K through 12, than any other developed country. That's taken from the 2022. Average spending per student was $16,310. So yeah, we are paying more, and we're not in number one. I didn't see where we crack above 15 in any category. Okay, so math, science, reading, not good. Okay, so that's the first thing. So he's not crazy. Our education system is not great, and we do pay the most. Okay, now for some more specifics. So what is it about the Department of Education that has so many people upset? What are they doing wrong? What are the issues? Is this all fabricated by Trump? Is Trump just pulling stuff out? Because that's what people love to say. Well, the Department of Education has some established concerns. People have been voicing concerns about how it functions, centralization concerns. Critics argue about overreach. They say, hey, you guys should not be controlling our local education from the federal government. You shouldn't have a say in how we federally educate how we educate our children on the state and local level. Some believe education should remain primarily at the state local levels, concerns about standardized requirements, diminishing local controls. Then people say it's just not effective. You know, they say they question whether the department has improved the educational outcomes. It's important to note there wasn't always a Department of Education. I think it was Jimmy Carter who founded the Department of Education in the 70s. Is that accurate? I think I read that somewhere. Okay. People criticize various initiatives like No Child Left Behind, debates over standardized testing requirements and their impact, questions about the department's role in addressing achievement gaps, concerns about bureaucratic inefficiency, size of the department's budget, debates over how funds are allocated and distributed, questions about regulatory burden on schools and teachers. Then, of course, there's political controversies, like we've been seeing with Trump and MAGA. Conservatives call for abolishing the department entirely. They want to get rid of it. Debates over federal influence on curriculum, teaching standards, the whole thing about LGBTQ in the schools. And there was the concerns about Black history, racism, how much that should be taught. Just various issues that we're all very much aware of the last couple of years. Civil rights enforcements, disagreements over policies, school choice, vouchers, the list goes on. Then, of course, you got your student loans. Criticism of the department's handling of student loan programs, debate over loan forgiveness policies, questions about oversight of for-profit colleges, concern about rising student debt levels. So these are all concerns. And these didn't just start with Trump, and it didn't just start today. It wasn't like Trump comes in and now these are things. No, this is stuff, these are issues that people have been raising for years. What's the solution? I don't know. But here's the thing. Here's the deal for me. Hey, if you spend more per child than any other country in the developing world, and you don't have the results to show for it, something needs to change. Why is it that it seems the Democrats were fine under Biden not doing a damn thing? And under Trump, they upset because Trump wants to do some damn things. That is probably a nice medium to be at. But you sat around for 4 years with Biden doing basically nothing. The problems stay as they are, and you were quiet. I didn't see these people running down to the Department of Education to check on how the education was going. They weren't there. Now, Trump's in office. He's talking about making radical changes,
At least now people are focused on education. That's nice. That's good. I tend to believe if you're not going to do something about it, if you're not going to shake it up, then what good are you? It'd be different, guys, if we were doing well. It'd be different if all the schools were performing well and children were learning. And let's keep it real. When it comes to black schools, in the inner cities, for instance, those ain't schools. Those are pipelines to prison. Boxes preparing you for jail in little warrior academies. A lot of those schools are underfunded, understaffed, and under-resourced. Or a lot of them are just closed down, boarded up. So miss me with the whole, oh, the Department of Education, oh, it's such a cornerstone of the. Yeah, I know a lot of people work for it. I get it, a lot of people work for it. But how effective is it? Like I said, it'd be different if it was kicking ass. It'd be different if you could say, hey, man, we're in the top 5 of everything. Why is Trump doing this? See, because I know it's always going to be people that are going to side with the Democrats on this. Just because I had a knee-jerk response. They're not even going to consider the fact that Trump ain't trying to sabotage it. It sucks already. If Trump didn't care, or if his administration didn't give a shit, he wouldn't do anything. And just let it be what it is. I mean, as it is, our public school system is not working for the average student. And the average black student is not working even less. It's working even less. All right? So when you're faced with that kind of predicament, I don't know if you got any room to say, hey, leave it as it is. Leave it alone. Nah, don't leave it alone. Leaving it alone is what got us to where we are. Do you want better schools or you don't want better schools? What if you try something and it doesn't work? You can always go back to hire a bunch of people to sit in a building downtown D.C. and do whatever they're doing. Push paper. All right, that's what I got on this. I say give it a shot.
This. This is Dabu 7. We have reports now from USGS of a very strong magnitude 7.6 hitting out here in the Caribbean. This was initially labeled as an 8-pointer, and tsunami alerts were put out on this. They're saying, though, for the United States and the surrounding areas at the moment, there's no major tsunami warning. I'd say the areas like Georgetown here would be the biggest threats. Any of these islands out here surrounding this. So this is a rather large quake. We don't see them like this that often. Back out here so you can see exactly where it's situated there. And I noticed off the back end of this, literally 2 minutes after this big quake hit, we had a 2.8 strike in Yellowstone. So you can see 6:29 p.m. right there on that one. You can see 6:27 p.m. there. So 2 minutes after this big quake hit, down here, we have one hitting Yellowstone. Just wanted to make sure folks are aware of all this activity going on here. Make sure to follow me on X for more information and updates, breaking updates. And before I dip out of here, I want to make note that they're not on the map, but Ohio had seen 2 decent quakes here this past week, as well as we're keeping an eye on that New Madrid area. That is a look from the West Coast all the way down to the Caribbean. I'll post more as I get it. This has been
that recently crippled half of America is back. And over the last 24 hours, this particular video is going viral. Take a look at this video, which is going viral now. For the past 24 hours, the internet has been flooded with reports that the same mysterious fog, which caused many health issues among Americans within the last 2 months, is now back. And multiple reports are coming from several cities in America. The video you saw was from Tulsa, Oklahoma. And as you can see, a dense, thick layer of fog is spreading around the city. Folks, don't you think this video was strange? Now I want to show you another clip of the same fog that is now coming back. Take a look at this video.
Look, guys. See the fog? Those are parasites and bacteria. This is biological warfare. This is Nuremberg stuff right here. This is Myrtle Beach, South Carolina, and it's February 2025.
Did you watch that? This video is said to be from South Carolina. And whatever this lady has said is really very concerning. There is a report going viral which claims that an independent laboratory tested these mysterious fog particles and they found parasites and bacteria in it. This report says that this laboratory is situated in Naples, Florida. And if this is true, folks, then we need to be careful before going out of our homes because this could be dangerous. Now let me ask another question here. Do you remember that when this fog was introduced, there was a sudden rise in cases of respiratory illnesses? People were frightened to go out in this fog because they were getting sick. Folks, if this report is true, then we should not ignore that this fog that is gradually coming back to multiple cities in USA could be serious and harmful. I have shown you two videos so far, one from Oklahoma and the other from South Carolina. Now let me show you another clip from another city where the fog is reportedly back. Take a look.
It didn't rain. That was not rain on the camera.
This video is said to be from Mississippi in the US. And as you can see at first glance, it seems like it's raining. But no folks, make no mistake. This was once again the same mysterious fog with big particles in it. People who are witnessing this fog coming back are once again saying that there is a similar kind of chemical smell in this fog. And this is really weird. So folks, my question is, are there any harmful particles in this fog too? Are those theories and videos going viral on the internet true? Is there any dark agenda going on behind our back that is not in our favor? Folks, I don't know the truth because there are so many strange things going on that are beyond our understanding. So whether this is intentional, a natural occurrence, or a result of a weather manipulation, one thing is clear, folks. The fog is coming back, and we should be on alert mode so that we don't get sick this time as before.
When this fog first appeared, there were dozens of reports of people experiencing breathing issues, itchy skin, and a weird metallic taste in their mouths. And now, as this fog returns, we're seeing the same pattern. Multiple sources are now saying that this fog isn't just natural moisture. There are strange particles being found in it. Some say they have taken samples and sent them for testing, and what they found is beyond concerning. They're finding microscopic substances that shouldn't be in the air. Things that don't just appear out of nowhere. And if this is true, then we need to take this seriously, because it means this isn't just a weather event. Something else is happening. And think about this. Why does this fog keep coming back at certain times? Why are people reporting a chemical smell? Why are some saying it feels heavier than regular fog, making it hard to breathe? Remember what happened the last time this fog was seen? Shortly after, there was a rise in respiratory illnesses. Many people thought it was just a coincidence, but now, with the fog returning, the same things are happening again. If you go out in this fog, you need to be careful. Avoid breathing it in if you can, because we still don't know the full extent of what's inside it, and pay attention to the reports coming out. Because if even one of these test results is true, then we are dealing with something much bigger than we initially thought. And the strangest part, when this fog first appeared, there were reports that certain agencies were quick to dismiss it, calling it a natural phenomenon. But if it was just that, why did so many people get sick? Why did so many report the same usual smells and symptoms? Some say it's weather manipulation. Others believe it's something being released into the atmosphere intentionally. Whatever the case may be, we cannot ignore what is right in front of us. This is the reason. Through Lord Helps Ministry, we request you to take precautions. Stay informed. If you see this fog in your area, be careful. Pay attention to your surroundings. And don't just dismiss it as normal, because based on what we've seen before, there's nothing normal about it. Now, I will talk about some precautions we could take, and from the past experiences. But remember, this is my personal opinion on how you should prepare in this situation. Given what we have already seen, and the reports that continue to surface, it is better to be cautious than to regret later. We don't know exactly what's in this fog, but we do know that it has affected people's health before. And if something has already shown signs of being harmful once, then there is no reason to believe that this time will be any different. In fact, it could be worse. First and foremost, if you see this fog in your area, avoid going out unless it is absolutely necessary. There have been too many reports of people experiencing breathing issues and other symptoms after exposure to this fog. If you must go out, cover your nose and mouth with a mask or cloth to minimize inhaling any potential toxins. Keep your windows and doors closed whenever this fog appears. If there is something in the air, you don't want it getting into your home. Make sure your vents and air conditioners have good filtration, and if possible, use air purifiers inside your home to reduce any possible contaminants. Stay hydrated and boost your immune system. When strange events like this happen, the last thing you want is to be caught with a weak immune system. Drink plenty of water, take vitamins, and eat foods that help support your body's natural defenses. If you notice any strange symptoms after being out in this fog, such as headaches, dizziness, a metallic taste in your mouth, itchy skin, or breathing difficulties, wash your face and body immediately. Change your clothes and avoid bringing your outdoor clothing into your living space. These small precautions can help reduce any possible exposure. If you have pets, bring them inside whenever this fog appears. Animals may be more sensitive to whatever is in the air, and many pet owners have already reported strange behaviors from their animals when this fog rolls in. If you notice your pet acting sick after being outside, wash their paws and fur and monitor them closely. Another important step: pay attention to your environment. If you notice any odd residue left behind after this fog clears, don't ignore it. Document everything. Take photos. Keep track of any changes. You see? If this is something unnatural, then the more evidence we have, the harder it will be to dismiss it. Be mindful of what you consume. If you have a garden or grow your own food, be extra cautious. Wash your fruits and vegetables thoroughly if this fog has settled over your area. We don't know what particles may be dropping from it, and it's better to be safe than sorry. Keep an eye on local reports and other people's experiences. Mainstream sources may not always cover these events accurately, but local reports from individuals experiencing it firsthand can give us a better picture of what's really going on. If you hear about sudden spikes in health issues following the fog, that is a sign to take this even more seriously. And above all, trust your instincts. If something doesn't feel right, it probably isn't. We cannot afford to ignore these signs, because history has shown us that when strange events happen, they often have a deeper meaning behind them. Folks, this isn't about fear. This is about preparation. This is about understanding that when we see something happening in front of our eyes, we cannot just brush it off. The fact that this fog has returned and that it is spreading again in multiple areas means that we have to be aware, we have to be vigilant, and we have to be ready for whatever may come next. Don't ignore this. Don't wait until it affects you or someone you love. Take precautions now. Stay informed and make sure you are doing everything you can to keep yourself and your family safe. Because if we have learned anything from the past, it's that events like this don't just happen without a reason. Something is going on, and whether they want to admit it or not, the signs are right in front of us. Now join me in a powerful prayer, which is to ask God to give us a healthy and beautiful life. Heavenly Father, the Almighty Creator of the heavens and the earth, we come before you with humble hearts, lifting our voices in prayer, seeking your divine protection and abundant blessings upon our lives. You are the giver of life, the sustainer of our breath, and the one who holds every moment in your hands. Father, we thank you for waking us up today, for giving us another opportunity to live, to breathe, and to witness the beauty of your creation. Lord, we come to you in this hour, recognizing that we live in uncertain times. Strange things are happening around us, events that defy logic, and situations that cause fear and distress. But we declare today that we will not be shaken. For you are our refuge and our fortress, our God, in whom we trust. You have promised in your word that no weapon formed against us shall prosper, and we hold on to that promise right now. Lord, Father, we ask that you stretch out your mighty hand and cover us with your divine protection. Shield us, O God, from every sickness, from every unseen danger, from every hidden agenda that seeks to harm your people. Just as you led the Israelites through the wilderness, keeping them safe from harm, we ask that you lead us through these uncertain times with the same power and might. Lord, we specifically ask for divine health over our bodies. We rebuke every sickness, every infirmity, and every affliction that may try to take root in us. Your word says in Jeremiah 30:17 that you will restore health to us and heal our wounds. So, we stand on that promise, Lord. Let every breath we take be filled with life, and let our bodies be strong, full of vitality, free from disease and suffering. Father, as strange events unfold before our eyes, we refuse to live in fear, for we are children of the Most High. We ask for wisdom and discernment to navigate through these times. Open our eyes to see the truth. Open our ears to hear your voice, and open our hearts to receive your guidance. Let us not be deceived by the distractions of this world, but keep us anchored in your word. For your word is truth, and your truth sets us free. Lord, we pray for our families, our loved ones, and our friends. Keep them safe, Lord. Let your angels encamp around them, guarding them from all harm. Cover our homes with your precious blood, so that no evil may come near us. Just as you spared the homes of the Israelites when the plague passed over, let no harm, no sickness, and no disaster touch our dwelling places. And Father, we ask for peace. In a time of chaos, uncertainty, and fear, let your peace reign in our hearts, a peace that surpasses all understanding, a peace that only you can give. Fill our homes with joy, fill our days with hope, and fill our hearts with unwavering faith. Lord, we declare that our lives will be beautiful, filled with blessings, filled with good health, and overflowing with your goodness. Let every day be a testimony of your love and faithfulness. We trust you, Lord, and we believe that you are with us every step of the way. We pray this in the mighty name of Jesus Christ, our Lord and Savior. Amen.
we are going to let's go ahead and get right into today's video. So about a couple months ago, I believe it was around December, January, there was a very mysterious fog that had touched down in multiple locations around the world. Multiple states within the United States, the United Kingdom, Ireland, India. Like I said, multiple locations around the world were experiencing this very mysterious fog. So I made a couple of videos on the topic, and I said how multiple people were noticing that this fog had unique properties. Many people noticed how it smelled like chemicals. It had a strange taste. It was causing their eyes to burn. It was making them sick. And remember, I was noticing the same exact thing. It even gave me a rash. There were other people out there pushing back and saying, it's just fog, bro. And my response was, look here, look, listen. My very last video about the fog was saying how it was tested and it came back that it tested positive for Serratia marcescens. Now, again, Serratia marcescens was something that was sprayed by the United States Navy back in the 1950s on the public. Many people became ill. Matter of fact, a couple of people passed away from this spray. What is also interesting is that people were connecting the fog right back to the drones because people noticed that the drones were spraying something. Matter of fact, the fog was really appearing in locations where the drones had been really noticeable. But eventually people stopped talking about the fog altogether because we have become distracted by other news stories and we forget all about previous news stories. Now people are leaving me comments, and also people are uploading videos and posting on different social media platforms that the fog has returned. But my thing is, did it ever leave? Maybe it still has always been here, and we have just been distracted by these other news stories like the plane crashes, the Super Bowl, and so forth. And for whatever reason, people are starting to notice again. Because in my location in the South where I'm from, we do get fog, but it's very rare. Certain conditions have to be met. And I've noticed that this fog has been lingering and it still has the same properties. It has a strange smell, a strange taste. People in my household have been reporting a very unique and strange headache, like this pressure in our forehead, body aches, cramps after being outside. So maybe it's always been here, it's been lingering, and we've just been distracted again by these other stories. But what I find interesting, and again, talking about the Super Bowl, all these strange connections and coincidences, and I will still make it clear that I don't think anything will happen at tomorrow's game. I think it's just one big ritual like it always is. Maybe this will be an extra ritual during halftime, the commercials and so forth. But there is even a fog connection right back to the Super Bowl. I'm reading this article from market.com, and other news agencies are also talking about this. But this article is titled, Super Fog Could Disrupt Super Bowl Travel in New Orleans. I do find it odd they're using a photo of the shooting that took place at the Kansas City Chiefs rally to talk about this fog. But matter of fact, there are other articles that are actually calling it a death fog. I'm reading this article from the Daily Mail, which was published on February 8th today. This article is titled, Deadly Super Fog Threatens Super Bowl Sunday in New Orleans. Again, even though I'm in that camp where I feel like nothing will happen at the Super Bowl, I would not go to the Super Bowl. I would stay clear from the Super Bowl because there's just way too many eerie things surrounding this game. But anyway, this article goes on to say that a dangerous super fog could roll into New Orleans just in time for Super Bowl 59, set to be held at the city's Caesars Superdome Stadium Sunday. This weather phenomenon occurs when fog droplets mix with smoke particles, creating an exceptionally dense fog that causes visibility to drop to near 0 feet. The looming super fog could result from warm temperatures, humid air, and smoke from a large marsh fire burning about 30 miles from the Big Easy. The article goes on to say how the game will be held indoors, but this fog could be dangerous for people who are traveling, and people won't be able to see the roads and so forth, maybe stopping them from attending that Super Bowl. And that's pretty eerie in itself. Or they could be spraying something, and you never know, things could leak inside where there are a lot of people. So that's very odd. That's very weird. So for anybody that's saying that nothing's going to happen at the Super Bowl, well, now they're telling us that there's a deadly fog. And I have to say, I don't remember ever hearing a news story or an article that connects a super fog, a very serious fog, and the Super Bowl. When have you ever heard those connections before? Maybe there has been stories like this and I haven't been paying attention, but this is around the same time that people are very anxious about this Super Bowl because they feel like something's going to happen. And at the same time, you have people talking about a very mysterious fog that, again, has unique properties. This person on TikTok, Karma's Potion, this is what they captured on video when it comes to the fog. And people in the comment section of their video are saying how the fog is appearing in their location, and they are also experiencing fatigue, achy headaches, feverish with no fever after being out in the fog.
Oh my God, look. The fog. It's back. What the heck? Do you have fog where you're at? It's 7:36 at night. It's not freezing. It's probably 40, 50 degrees, something like that. Hey Siri. The temperature is 51 degrees outside. Ew, it smells funny out here. Let's see if I can zoom in. It says how far it will go. Oh no. Is that as far as it will go? Oh, look, here's a car. Can you see anything in the lights? No. Wow, look at that. It's like steamy fog.
This was the fog very recently over in Tulsa. This video was uploaded by Basic Truth Revealed 3 on TikTok, and they are also noticing, again, this very unusual fog in Florida, and they are saying how just being out in this fog, they are feeling unwell.
Hey everybody, today is February 7th, 2025. Another sunny, beautiful day in the sunny state of Florida. Just going around here real quick. Just letting you know it's back. Yesterday it wasn't here yesterday morning when I woke up. Nothing last night. I don't know what it was. If it was like 2 o'clock, 3 o'clock in the morning when this started, I don't know because I wasn't up. I'm just doing a quick panoramic view this way. And then let's see. Let's just see. The sun is nowhere to be found in this sunny state. And let's see all the way down there that we can't see. Look at that. Horrible. Absolutely horrible. We know that there's what smart dust and whatever else they're calling this stuff that's in here. All these particles, bacteria. Friggin', I don't know. I don't even know anymore. This is ridiculous. I want to know when anything is going to happen. When is this going to stop? My throat, every morning I wake up, my eyes, my throat, I'm hearing sicknesses worse and worse every single day from so many people. This is just crazy. This got to stop.
fog is back, or it had just never left and we just were not paying attention. But I definitely will be covering this fog some more as more reports come in. But in any case, thank you so much for watching.
So let's make a couple of notes here. Dating back to the Eisenhower administration, the system that gives U.S. presidents the ability to launch a nuclear strike at a moment's notice revolves around what is known as the nuclear football. The football, formerly called the Presidential Emergency Satchel, is carried by a military aide who accompanies the president wherever he goes. As a backup, a second aide carrying another football follows the vice president. But what does a football, the president, and the Super Bowl have to do with each other? Well, let's dig a little deeper. So let's make a couple of notes here. We have the Kansas City Chiefs, like the chief and commander, that the logo or their icon is the tip of a spear. Then we also have the eagle, like the American Eagle or the American Eagle Airlines. That is the logo for the other team playing the football game tomorrow on Sunday, or today, depending on when I release this video. So let's pay attention to the details now. On January 29th, 2025, which just happens to be 29 as in 29 as in February 9th, a United States Army Sikorsky UH-60 Black Hawk helicopter collided midair with American Airlines Flight 5342, operated by PSA Airlines as American Eagle, kind of like the Philadelphia Eagles. A Bombardier 6RJ-700 airliner over the Potomac River about a half mile short of runway 33 at Ronald Reagan Washington National Airport in Arlington, Virginia. All 67 aboard the aircraft were killed in the crash. It is interesting to note that the Black Hawk helicopter was flying a required annual night flight evaluation out of Davison Army Airfield in Fairfax County, Virginia. This flight was an annual flight that had to take place as part of the preparation for, or practicing for, or drilling for continuancy of government in case of a situation where, let's say, a leader, a chief, was to go missing or die.
Routine annual retraining of night flights on a standard corridor for a continuity of government mission.
So we have a Black Hawk helicopter on a continuity of government flight that happens to run into a American Eagle flight coming out of Kansas. And then we have the other crash. On January 31st, 2025, a mid-ambulance, Flight 56, crashed in Philadelphia, kind of like the Philadelphia Eagles. And most people seem to think it looked more like a missile than an airplane. Just saying. To actually understand any of this, you have to understand that the world is ruled by symbolism. Yeah, you would think it would be money or something else, but it's not. It's symbolism. So is there any symbolism related to any of this around the people involved? Let's take a look. People involved. Let's take a look. What you're looking at here, of course, is the Mar-a-Lago coat of arms for Trump. And as you can see, he has a tip of a spear grasp in his fist. Tip of the spear. Interesting. And here we have Trump during graduation ceremonies for West Point. And he is standing at the very front at what you could say symbolically is the tip of the spear once again. And of course, here we have the iconic position that Donald Trump likes to sit in when he is sitting with world leaders or meeting with the media. He uses his hands to form the tip of a spear. But how could this possibly be tied to a football game where a nuclear football could come to play? Oh, yeah. The Kansas City Chiefs, like the chief and commander, has the tip of a spear on its helmet, and they'll be playing in the Super Bowl. And don't forget the little air crash in D.C. that had to do with them and the Eagles and the Philadelphia Eagles and the Philadelphia crash. And then I've got a little something else to show you that's related. You may not understand it, but many of us here do. There's a little video that came out back in 2013. It's called I Pet Goat. And it shows a submarine coming across the waters with missiles on its back and the angel of death calling in death. And it looks very similar to what may be going on as a prophetic prediction, you might say. Let's take a look. So in this scene, which I'm not going to play for copyright reasons, you see it shows something that is the symbolism of a submarine coming across the water, and the tip of the spear cuts off the head of what looks like a helmet with wings on it. Let's see if we can find any helmet with wings. Well, it looks like we actually have that as well. Now, all of this could be made up in the conspiratorial mind of a genius, or it could be something that's symbolically being played out that could happen. There's too much evidence here. There's too much going on. There's almost seems to be something afoot, kind of like a football or a nuclear football. But Trump's never spoken of nuclear war or anything like that, has he? Well, actually, he has. You see, the first interview Trump ever gave discussing the possibility of him becoming president, they asked him, what would be your concerns or thoughts about becoming president? He immediately said, I'm concerned about nuclear weapons and them being used and going off. You can look it up and read it for yourself. But things are never as they seem. You would need a patsy to pull off something like this. So who would be the patsy? Who's got a nuclear sub and doesn't really like the United States and has been very verbal about it, and they're one of the Red Dragon countries? Maybe it might be this guy.
말장 체계와 잠암 작전 능력을 얻어야 하시.
So will it happen? I don't know. How will it happen? Will it be tsunami? The location's a really good location for a tsunami. They proved that with Katrina. And yes, they pulled that off. Or will it be a hostage type situation where you blow up the two bridges that would cut off pretty much all access to the Super Bowl area and hold Mr. T, president, hold him hostage? Or will they show that the place has been blown up, like in the movie Sum of All Fears, or Batman Returns, or whichever Batman movie it was, that they showed the stadium getting blown up? All things to make you go, I'm not trying to invoke fear other than the fact I wouldn't be nowhere near that place down there. But I'm just trying to make you aware that symbolism rules the world, and they're symbolizing some very interesting things right now. The nuclear football. Interesting name, isn't it? Just a coincidence, I'm sure.
Coffee. Follow me.